hopefully live.
Go on,
we are
Andy.
live. Yeah, we're live.
I saw the little word appear in the top corner.
Yeah. Live. Mine's there, and it's counting up. So we are now live.
Either we're live
Very
or it's an
exciting.
instruction that we've got to continue to live.
I like that one. But then when it's counting up, is that like a leaderboard? Like who's doing the best at staying
Well,
alive?
it doesn't start counting down. That could be.
Yeah. That would be very menacing. I'm gonna not look at that for the rest of the stream now. It's gonna be some final destination like
just derailed us before we've even started. Sorry, guys.
I mean, I was told that we should have tangents, so I was just getting started early. Yeah,
totally. I watched. Have either of you seen Tomorrow War on Amazon?
Tomorrow War? No.
Yeah, I think it's Tomorrow War. It's it's the brother of the guy who played Thor. Plays a guy who gets sent into the future to
Liam Hemsworth.
I was going to say Hemsworth. That sounds right.
Or it might be Platt. I don't know. I don't pay attention to stuff like that. It just looked like an exciting film.
The brother of Chris from the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. It's just like this. But it was. I'm sure somebody will correct. But it was quite a good film. There's the prospect of everyone dying. There's quite a lot of death.
Is there some good science in it though? That's what I want to know.
Well, time travel. Time travel. So yeah.
Because there's got to be some hint towards science when you've got time travel involved.
Oh, totally. And aliens.
Perfect.
Yeah, and quite good aliens actually. It was quite kind of kind of a cross between alien and what was the other one? There was some other kind of.
It's in sort of Ridley Scott Alien.
Yeah, and
not like Wikipedia entry alien, just generic alien little green man.
Joe in the comments says Chris Pratt. I'll take your word on that.
Is that Joe, my fiance Joe?
Attard?
That's the one. Yep. That's the one. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Cuz. Yeah.
I don't mean to brag, but he does have a PhD in film.
Ah.
So he would be an authority on this. Dr. Attard will let you know. It's nice to know he's tuned in from the living room though. That's he's showing support. I'm pleased about that. Thanks, Joe.
Cats entertained.
Yes, rescuing the cats.
Yeah. Pre-stream, we had to kick them out of the room because Maisie was threatening to knock over one of the light stands, and it would have been catastrophic. God, I'm so sorry. It's the sneaky whiskey I started drinking before we went live.
You definitely never need to apologise for a dad joke.
Excellent.
See, the only type of humour we're any good at.
As films go, it was quite a good film. It was a very enjoyable film actually for kind of late on a Saturday night and everyone else had gone to bed. So yeah.
I'll have to put it on my watch list.
Yeah, some good action, very good action actually, and science.
Action, aliens, and science.
So there were a couple of bits that were kind of there's a couple of bits that kind of didn't quite make sense to me, but in terms of kind of combat,
that's what I was going to say. It's the suspension of disbelief, isn't it? When you've got like background in a subject that's then in film or TV, there's always that moment where it kind of breaks your reality, and you go. That doesn't work like that.
Yep.
Yeah, my kids don't always like watching films with me because sometimes, depending on what a mood I'm in, I'll be going, that wouldn't work. No, you couldn't do that. No, that's not possible. And people would do that. And
there's an entire reaction culture to that, where they'll get Marines on to react to scenes from a film about Marines, and they'll just spend 20 minutes picking it apart.
I love those. They're so interesting though, because I feel like it's great because you get to watch the film the first time and just really enjoy it on just a really basic level, and then you get to enjoy seeing it dissected by someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to watch it twice, double the fun.
If there's anything you're planning on watching, don't watch the dissection first, because I've made that mistake a few times, and then sort of watch something and I just know I'm not then going to enjoy the thing because now I know why it's rubbish. You know?
Yeah.
Or the spoilers, or the little things about kind of there's a scene where you can see somebody wearing a wristwatch and it's ancient Rome, so it's like you're kind of constantly looking at where's that scene with the wristwatch.
Because wasn't the most famous one one of the most famous recent ones was the Starbucks cup that made it into like Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was. And like I think it was Ben-Hur, I think, Andy, with the wristwatch, I think, or a car going.
There was one, yeah, and there was a plane in the sky in something that shouldn't have had, like the Kirk Douglas Vikings, something like that. There was something like that in one of those. And,
of course, everyone knows to look out for the stormtrooper banging his head in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But the Fight Club completely ruined that for me for a long time. The little thing up in that way it would be in the top corner of the thing when they're supposed to change the projector over, like the little cigarette mark. So then for the following kind of decade, every time I went to the cinema, I'd just see it out the corner of my eye because I was then looking for it. And there's just like every half an hour or so, there'd just be this kind of
you'd see it
snap out of the.
Used to get that on TV as well, kind of where on like ITV when the sort of on the adverts,
the
get a little bit in the corner,
black and white dinglies.
Yeah, so you'd know it was going to kind of just start coming up. It's like reaction things when Casualty first appeared on TV. This is going back into maybe the 90s. Was it 80s?
I was there.
I can't remember, but it was a long time ago. My dad was a paramedic. He spent years kind of doing medic stuff and things like that, and we just like sit there going, "Oh no, you can't do that," and it's like, "Oh, that would kill them," and it was like, and because I did a lot of first aid training with him and sort of helping out, kind of on first aid courses that he ran, so it'd be like, what would we do in this situation, and what would we do for that? And it's like. It was quite fun in a way, but I can't imagine if anyone else had been sort of sitting in the conversation going, "What are you two on about?"
I suppose that one's a bit scary because you think like if they're showing somebody doing something that like would be dangerous to the person, imagine being in like an emergency situation and someone's like, "Don't worry, I saw this on Casualty. I know exactly what to do."
That does happen quite a lot, doesn't it? Where people have only got their science or medical knowledge from TV and film, and there's been quite a bit of that, which is quite worrying.
You just got to look at how sort of science is being, how should we put it, not taken seriously by some people in the kind of current situation based on what they see.
That was
on
incredibly
film and
diplomatic.
social media. It's just like
it's just trying to avoid a 3-hour rant, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that this stream has like a genuine danger of becoming like several hours of me and Andy talking about being Welsh and being physicists. So
yes, I mean this is truth.
I was very, very tempted to just get a couple of packs of really, really cheap supermarket Welsh cakes and just sit here munching on them just to annoy you both.
To be honest, I'm not sure it would annoy me because I'd rather people just know that Welsh cakes exist.
Yeah.
Than just, it's better to eat a crap Welsh cake than to not eat Welsh cakes at all.
Well, having sampled Andy's, I can verify that the Sainsbury's ones are better than the Tesco ones.
That is a top tip.
Yeah,
and also, how come I haven't sampled Andy's Welsh cakes?
We haven't actually met in person yet.
I know.
When we do, I will ensure.
Well, I think we already say we have to do a Welsh cake trade?
Yes. Yeah, and I have to be the adjudicator as well.
Yes,
I think that was the Make a Central Welsh cake off.
Except I have to cheat because my mum makes the best Welsh cakes. She makes them far better than me, so I'm just going to get her to make a batch and pass them off as mine. And she's got many more years of experience on me in the Welsh cake making department. But and I don't have a bake stone here, so I can't possibly.
I don't. My sister has the family one.
Yeah.
My sister's got the family bake stone.
Well, you know what?
Older than me,
we've both got to learn to weld so that we can make our own. Start a new family bake stone.
Somebody on Instagram a couple of years ago told me, it's like they're down in Australia and they said but Welsh, and they said, oh yeah, we just went to the local engineering firm and we just got some 10mm steel plate cut out in the shape of a bake stone. It's like,
oh, that's fantastic.
That's what it is, really, isn't it?
It's a good way of doing it. AVE did that. He wanted to make one for his barbecue, so he bought this like big mill, big 100,000 Haas mill thing, and then just bought this like lump of steel, and just cut the end off, cut like a little groove around it, and just plunked it on his barbecue.
I love it. I love it. That's epic. I mean, so welding has been like next on my hit list of like maker skills to acquire. So I think that like bake stone project, that's got to be bumped up the list a few notches now.
Everyone sort of says, don't they, that the best way to learn a new skill is to put it to a project.
Absolutely.
So the project is there, ready to go.
Yeah, gives you that motivation to get learning.
Yeah.
So is that so? I mean, two things jump to my mind. First of all, first is you should maybe have a word with Ruth.
Definitely. Yes.
Because she's been doing some work with Lincoln Electric, and she herself is developing her skills as a welder.
Very proficient welder, so I'm told.
Really, yeah, and did some interesting stuff, particularly what you see on kind of. In fact, one of my kind of attention grabbers was going to be the Kids Invent Stuff finger fork, finger cutlery video from this week. And, some welding there.
Welding's a very small stainless as well.
For sure, yeah. Some particularly impressive welding.
But the kind of next thing I was sort of thinking is welding something that you're going to pick up in your new job? Is that a job-related skill?
I hope so. So I'm very lucky. I work in a massive workshop now. And we do a bit of everything, and we have welding equipment as well as like a machine room with lathes, mills, and all of those bits and pieces, 3D printers, hand tools. I work primarily in electronics, but because we're just a team of people who like making stuff, quite often if there's any opportunity, everyone wants to go and learn to do all the other things in the workshop, and it benefits us all, because the more people who can do more things, the easier it is to build stuff. Because if somebody's busy doing something else and you just need something welded up quickly, you can go and do it. But at the minute, we've got quite a lot of very proficient welders. So it's not really a skill I need to acquire, but I am pestering people daily. Like, when are you going to teach me to weld?
Yeah, plenty of teachers. If there's plenty of proficient welders.
Yes.
In that kind of dynamic as well, if you're all needing to like rely on each other for things, it must be really beneficial to be taught by the people you're working with.
Oh, absolutely,
they'll know that you're going to weld the way they
yeah.
No, but to be able to sort of hand something off and say, can you just finish that while I'm doing the next bit, and you'll do it the same way they will, and things.
Exactly, yeah. And it's learning on the machines that we're all using as well. So if you're in the machine room, it's like, I mean, I know that fundamentally a mill or a lathe works in a similar way, but anyone who's like watching that has 3D printers knows that to set up your Ender 3 versus like setting up your Photon Mono is going to be a different process. So even though it works on the same kind of principle, the particular idiosyncrasies of individual machines definitely plays a part in how well you can use them. So learning on the machines that you're going to be then using to build stuff with everybody else kind of makes a lot of sense. But I just went straight in and was like, I want to learn to use the biggest, scariest machine we have here.
And what is that?
We have a giant KUKA robot arm, 7-axis. Well, 6-axis robot arm with an external axis, a turntable that moves. And this thing is, I don't know how to, like about at least 3 Hannahs tall, which I suppose isn't saying much because a Hannah is quite a small unit of measurement, but still kind of human size, but like a few humans tall. Like very formidable, like, half-ton thing. And it's terrifying. It can move at like 6 meters a second, carrying
Jeepers.
I think it's 50 kilos on the end of it, full extension or something. It could very kill you. It could very, very kill you. I love it. So I've recently got training to use this. And so most of the time, if it's moving like at top speed, you obviously can't be in the little cubicle with it while it has like, a tool on the end of it spinning at thousands of RPM. It's extremely dangerous. So we don't go in, but you can drive it in manual mode at 10% speed if you need to move it into position to check the tool or do maintenance on it. So you have to learn to do that as well. And it's kind of basically like a souped up iPad with a big red stop button at the top and then two kind of dead man switches at the back. And you have to hold down the dead man switches while you're
I was just about to say, has it got dead mans? But
yeah. So if you drop the iPad, it's not going to come and gore you. It's very good that it has those. It's very thoughtfully designed. But to learn how to move each of the axes and kind of get a feel for how it moves when you're driving it manually, my boss went into the little cubicle with a plastic cup, just puts the cup down on the turntable and just goes, try and put the tooltip in the cup. It was so much fun. It was enormous fun.
Oh, I bet.
That's a really, really cool way.
It's like one of those like fairground amusement arcade type things, except with a giant death machine. Yeah.
So like you see people kind of. I saw a video. I think it was something like an Instagram reel last week, where somebody had strapped a spade, just an ordinary kind of sort of construction grade digging spade, to the bucket of their caterpillar track. So they were actually digging with the they had the bucket. Yeah, they could have dug with the bucket, but because they wanted something smaller, they were literally just sort of cutting away small amounts with this spade, just because they're too lazy to go and actually sort of do the digging.
That's fantastic.
Fantastic. That's the way to do it.
I mean, when you see kind of sort of skilled operators where they're kind of, they're cracking an egg open or something like that. With a caterpillar. Oh my.
I'm not quite there yet with the KUKA robot arm. It was a lot of like knocking the cup off the turntable a few times and then, but it's fine because, when it's actually machining something, you're using software to plan all the tool paths and to make it cut out a shape. So I don't have to be in control of it when it does any of the delicate stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just need to know how to run the software that makes it not have a panic attack or try and machine the underside of the table or, break out of its little cubicle and come after people in the workshop, which I'm convinced one day it's going to become sentient and do that. But until then, we're going to have a great time.
So when the robot apocalypse starts in kind of somewhere in West London, it's kind of we know who to pay.
do you go and greet it every morning and like give it a little stroke, make sure it's okay, treat it nicely.
Exactly what I was just about to say. Yeah, if I develop a close bond with the KUKA robot arm, then it means that I'm safe. The robot apocalypse, like that, can defend me from anything. I'm heading straight to the robot cubicle and just sitting at the base of it.
Definitely sounds like the right approach, I think.
Yeah.
I want to step back a little bit because you've only been in that job a few months, haven't you?
Yeah.
And previously, you were in journalism, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's quite a leap from
it is. Yeah.
Science journalism to prop making
to whatever it is I do now, which I'm not even sure some days.
Playing with toys by the sounds of it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, building stuff. It's been a bit of a weird trajectory because I did a physics degree, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. But there wasn't one aspect of my science degree that I thought, I want to be an academic and this is what I want to go into doing and I want to find out more about this one topic. I've always been, and I think this is very common for all of us in like the maker community, we're magpies. We see lots of things that interest us and we want to find a way to combine all of them and do lots of things. And for me to be like a magpie of science, the easiest way to do that was working at a science magazine. Because then every week I just got loads of different stories about different kinds of science and technology would come across my desk. And I could sit and read them and edit them and make them even better and add funny captions. I think so. One of my greatest achievements when I was working at New Scientist magazine, when I was just editing before I started writing for them, was I put a caption that managed to get through proofreading and into the printed mag, which was finding Feynman's bottom. And I was like, that That is my contribution to New Scientists, like venerable institution of a magazine, finding Feynman's bottom. But after a while of doing some editing for them, I started wanting to branch out into writing stuff myself. So I wrote like a couple of features for them and some bits and pieces. I wrote a feature on learning languages, and I went to this workshop where I learned a constructed language called Tokipona in 2 days. You've heard of Tokipona?
Yeah. Through the Illusionist podcast.
Exciting.
And, through listening to that, I was like, I want to learn that.
You definitely should. I tried to convince my fiance to learn it, and he had a go, but it's like, because I was like, this could be brilliant. It could be like our secret language. This will be a code for us.
That's exactly my thinking too.
Yeah, except it's actually A, kind of quite hard to learn, and B, because it's only got something like 100 words.
It's like it's very interpretive and contextual, isn't it?
Exactly that. So I think one of my favorite examples from the actual 2 days that we spent this kind of course learning it was we needed to try and come up with a way of describing coffee. There was no word for coffee, but we had a lot of coffee, so we needed some way of communicating that, and it basically ended up being like strong dark liquid. And we were like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's coffee.
Yep.
But then somebody was trying to tell a story later on about taking their car to the garage, and the car needed more strong dark liquid, and it wasn't coffee that the car needed, but we hadn't got another way of describing the kind of liquid that you need to put in a car. So there's a lot of crossover, and if you just join that conversation, you might assume we were talking about coffee, but it depends very much on the context as to which one of those that set of words is representing. It could be oil, could be coffee, it could be something completely different. It could be whiskey, actually.
Yeah.
It's watered down, you'll be pleased to hear. So it's not that dark, but it's definitely strong water.
I was going to say, you're doing better than me if you're looking volume in the glass, but that would make sense.
No, it's topped up with a lot of water.
Sensibly.
So I started writing for New Scientist, and I had just heard about people making stuff and the sort of maker movement, the right to repair, and all of these things. And I thought it was just such a fantastic idea, but I knew nothing about it other than the fact that it kind of existed, and there were these crazy people making all this stuff in their own houses. And I said, we're a science and technology magazine. Shouldn't we be writing about this? Shouldn't we be covering this? And after pestering enough times, they said, well, if you think it's so good, you should write about it. Yes. I went, yeah, fine. I think I will. But at the time, I knew absolutely nothing about making. So I'd had an Arduino in a drawer for about a year and had been too intimidated to stick any wires in it. I thought, well, now's the time. So I think the first thing that I made for New Scientist magazine, well, to begin with, I did a light up greetings card. It was just an LED and some conductive paint, and I made a switch out of foam. We did a little photo shoot for it, and it went down really well. So then I was like, what can I do next? I did, I think it was a QR code treasure hunt.
Oh, cool.
So the QR codes, you scan them, you get clues or little clips of video that leads you to the next QR code. And you can even cut them in half and stick them back together again. And I did a few of these, and they were going well, but my editor was like, I think we can go crazier. We can make them bigger and better. We can go crazier. And I thought, well, if you want crazy, I'm I'm all in. You just wait. So the next thing I made was the bath duck, and it was this completely over-engineered device to tell you when your bath was run. And it was basically, I didn't even have any hand tools at this point. So I had one tiny saw and a bunch of bits that I got from B&Q on my way home. So some pipes, a hinge, an offcut of wood that I got charged 50 pence for, some tin foil and a 9-volt battery. And basically it was a pipe with a hinge hot glued on it. There was a tin foil ball in the arm of the tube and a rubber duck on the other end. And when the level of your bath rose, the arm tipped, the ball rolled down and went into the vertical tube, and it landed on 2 wires, completing a circuit and making a buzzer sound.
Glorious.
And it was the most fun. And my editor said, yeah, that's it. That's how crazy we wanted it. Keep going like that. So the next one was the teabag dunking robot. I went straight from that into like the shoes that call you an Uber, and it just snowballed from there.
My brain just went to the idea of it having a little speaker on it, and you just like click the heels together or something, and it would go, "Oh, you're an Uber." And then, like, as in ring you an Uber.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I wish I'd. Do you know what? That would have been easier to make. I could have done that. Yeah, no, instead it was like Uber API, and like I had to add like 4 different LEDs, so you know, like when you've actually ordered it, when it's on its way, when the ride has been approved, and when your taxi has supposedly arrived. And I would like an extension that I wanted to make to the project was to add like a little LCD screen to the other shoe that would tell you the registration plate of the car you were looking for.
Oh, nice.
Because it did tell you when it hadn't like a light to tell you when like the car arrived, but of course you didn't know which of the cars around you it was. Yeah. It picked up your GPS location, so it should be a car nearby that's like, you know, recently arrived, but it would be nice to have the LCD screen.
And just sort of like, as soon as they knocked on the window, you'd say, "Did you get a request from a shoe?"
Yeah. Well, like I had to test it to make sure it worked, because I filmed like a little video about it. So I was like, well, I have to make sure this works. So like went out for a picnic, did some sort of filming of the shoes, just like some nice shots of walking around stylistically, and then had a go at clicking my heels together. The taxi arrived, and I literally just couldn't believe it had actually worked. And I just got in the back of this taxi, and I took my shoes off, and I was like, "I called you with my shoes." And the man just said nothing and kept on driving. I don't blame him at all, but it must have been like the weirdest fare he'd had that day, and that's saying something, because I know Uber drivers get a lot of interesting pickups.
Probably thinking she's drunk. Hope she's not going to throw up in the back.
Yeah, get out of my cab.
Did she mean shoe?
Yeah, did she mean shoe? Yeah, I do. Look, and it's probably just like quite terrifying seeing like these massive heels with like the big red button on the one of them, and like the wires sticking out of the side. You know, still with the LEDs lit up and everything. Like, and at that point, like, because I had no tools, I'd managed to hollow out part of this like platform at the front of the shoe to stick an Arduino in it with like a little Dremel tool. But I had no way to like put it back together, so I literally just hot glued this shoe shut.
Hot glue's great.
I mean, that's
hot glue.
Embracing your inner self, isn't it?
But absolutely, hot glue is like a lifesaver in so many situations. But I was like, you know, I'd painted them red, and I was trying to make them look as, you know, spot on as possible. And then they're just like, it's just a rim of hot glue. But it ended up working out really well, because hot glue is an excellent LED diffuser. So the LEDs that were on the actual Arduino board inside were just sort of sparkling out through the like rim of hot glue. So it looked completely intentional, even though the shoes didn't match anymore, and one of my legs was slightly heavier than the other. But you know, that's what prototypes are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Just walking around in circles because one side's heavier than the other.
Pretty much. So yeah, I made a lot of mad things for New Scientist, which was really great. But I was still doing my day job editing, so I was putting in like the 9 to 5 kind of working on other people's serious science stories, and then like moonlighting as a mad inventor, and having to come up with these projects and make them and shoot videos. And it was too much. And I realized that I was enjoying the making bit of it and writing about wacky inventions so much more than I was tied to kind of the editing thing. So in the end, I decided I was going to stop doing the editing thing and just try and do just the making bit. But I had so many more skills that I needed to sort of acquire. So I started working part-time while putting in some hours to making content and, you know, just building up a portfolio of skills I could use to build bigger and better projects. But then I realized there was a limit to what you could do in your bedroom, because you can't use crazy death robots. So I thought,
better to use those in other people's bedrooms, just in case
for
anything
sure.
happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to make it a mess.
Somebody else can pay for the giant death robot and for the mess it makes. So yeah, I ended up getting a job in special effects and becoming a technician, which happened a couple of months ago.
I mean, that kind of career trajectory, you couldn't predict that at any point, really, could you?
Absolutely.
Sort of say, oh yeah, in a couple of years' time, I will be working as a special effects technician.
Yeah. And like, who knows what I'll be doing a couple of years from now? If I've gone from like scientist to journalist to like special effects technician, maybe I'm going to be like a lion tamer in a couple of years' time or something. Like, who knows?
Or creating some sort of like geodesic dome on Mars or something to.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, no, I'm going to put that on my wish list now. That's the next project. Yeah.
Astronaut.
Colonize Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just start with the moon.
Robots.
Start with the moon. It's closer. You can come back from the moon easier.
That's a really good point.
True.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I thought Cardiff was quite a way away when I first moved up to London. Like, so Mars is a bit of a stretch. Definitely start with the moon. I mean, also, I think it's just more aesthetic. It depends on your like personal preference, I guess. But the moon seems kind of like a nice, calming sort of vista. But you sort of like get up and look out your window on Mars, and there's a massive dust storm, and you have to resort to growing potatoes in a like tent that you've put like taped together, or
put your poo in.
Sure, that was in a film.
Certainly was a very good film.
Yeah, that was a good film.
I'm still in that dichotomy of whether I watch the film first or read the book first. I still can't. Well, this is the thing, but then I'd have. I just can't reconcile it. I've been through both sets of arguments both ways, and I
did the book first, and I think I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I think if I'd have done the film first, I possibly would have been. Yeah, there are some differences between the book and the film.
But this is the thing, though, isn't it? Because
there always are, yeah.
Yeah, and
if you do the film, the book's going to be so much better. Whereas if you do the book first, the film's not going to be as good.
It's going to be a letdown.
So it's that.
I think I'd seen enough clips from the film to kind of have some of the imagery in my head to kind of help with the imagery from the book. So kind of
I suppose we should say for the listeners, we're talking about the SpongeBob movie, of course. Or it might be Andy Weir's The Martian.
Teletubbies Go to Mars. I thought it was.
Yeah. That's just them going home, right? Because they're not from here.
Oh yeah.
Teletubbies are definitely from somewhere else. It might even be another dimension, let alone another planet. But
have you seen the comparison between the Hobbits and the Teletubbies?
No. I'm going to have to put that on my watch list as well.
They both live in,
underground
weird
houses.
Kind of.
I am starting to see this already.
Houses and things. They're a bit weird looking. They're obsessed with things like food, big strange light in the sky.
Yep, I can see it. It's obvious to me now.
You'll never unsee it, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Don't know which one it's going to ruin more. But...
Yeah, The Martian. Would I prefer to have seen the film first? Oh, I don't know now. Now I'm doubting it now.
I suppose the only sensible thing for me to do then is to see the film first, and then read the book, and then
and then you two can compare.
We can compare notes. Yeah, we can have an entire episode.
We think
about
well enough.
Yeah.
We can get Andy Weir on. That'll do.
Oh, that would be a feather in the cap. We've had some brilliant guests. Would he be up to standard? I mean, he's a good writer. He's a good writer. I'm a third of the way through.
With big cool robots.
Project Hail Mary. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
If he contacts us, we'll see if we've got space in the schedule. I think that's the.
I mean, it's all right. Like after I've talked about the big crazy death robots, where do you go from there?
Exactly. It's all downhill from there.
Ooh. So that's all right.
Putting crazy death robots on wheels. Wheels on tracks.
That's the worst idea I've ever heard, and I love it.
You just the one, but you'd have to have it so it would do full 360, just on a set of tracks.
Oh, I mean, just some. You can get casters in IKEA. That'd be fine.
I've got a couple
just wheel it around.
Some heavy duty casters that would do half a ton easy. Yeah.
Yeah. See, sorted. Just meet me at the workshop. We'll go get it done.
A bit of bent pipe as a handle to push it around like a little.
Perfect. We got pipe bender as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, we got some stock material. We just put a nice curve in it. Someone's still got to teach me to weld so I can stick it on. But once we've got the casters on, no problem. Yeah. Mobile death robot.
Oh, crikey.
Well, I mean, we're going to have to do that now.
Yeah,
got
all sorts of visions now. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we've got 2 of them. So they wouldn't miss one of them. Just being on casters and going for a little outing.
Well, if there's 2, would you do one front, one back, and do them like a car, so you could sit in the middle between the 2, or would you do them like side by side?
I guess you wouldn't need to, because if you've got 6-axis robot arm, it can reach in pretty much any direction.
Yeah.
So you don't even need the both of them.
If you got 2, you could have dueling.
Oh,
death robots.
Now that's another terrible idea I'm into.
I've just gone to jousting. Just get them on the trolleys.
Robot jousting. Is that a thing? That feels like it should be a thing. I don't know if anyone in the comments knows about any robot jousting that goes on.
Not robot jousting, but I think in Japan there is some,
of course,
sort of giant robot. It's like Robot Wars, but with giant robots.
Ooh, yes, that sounds good.
There is, because some guys made a ridiculous, more ridiculous than you would imagine, kind of ridiculously sized one. Like Power Ranger type.
Well, my favorite Japanese robot ridiculous thing is Hebocon. Is that something either of you heard of? Hebocon? No. It's brilliant. It is. It's a bit like Robot Wars as well, but it's more like robot sumo wrestling, except the robots have to be terrible. You get penalized if they're actually good, well put together robots. They have to be disasters, and the aim is just to push the other robot out of the ring. And it's just just a format. So the guy that invented it has got a 2-page little kind of rule sheet that if you just want to run your own Hebocon event, it's just here's some rules for doing it. Make your robots crap, put them in a ring. They've got a couple of minutes. Whoever shoves the other one out first is the winner. So you got people turning up with cardboard boxes and wheels. Yeah, it's fantastic. I've always wanted to either run one or at least be involved in one.
Well, there must be more. I mean,
Robot Wars is going to make us central.
It is. Yeah.
Maybe we can get central. Hebocon, another booth that's got that.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Real proper robots, and then the antithesis.
Terrible robots. Yeah.
I don't think it's still going. I can remember a long time ago seeing almost robot Olympics type things. You'd have a robot that could climb a rope or swimming. And I remember seeing that on kind of sort of BBC. It's quite competitive. I don't know if that's something that still goes.
But that could be. Back, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was one that was it was digitized robot. They had a software, and you designed a robot in the software, a kind of theoretical robot, and they did a little simulation of how it would get over this assault course or pass the different tests. I can't remember the name of it now. But that was a kids' TV show, which I assume was the 90s.
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
That's when I was a kid.
Well, looping it back around kind of to simulation stuff and other planets and science museums. At Science Museum in London, they have, or had when we were there, a load of iPads set up with a Mars robot. It's like a plate that you would draw a closed polygon, and then there's an engine, and then you can drag wheels in and change the size of the wheels, and then it sets them running. But it was not competitive as such, but you were all playing together, and they just had it up on a projector.
That sounds fantastic.
It's amazing. They released it as an app as well. You can get it on your phone and stuff, and you can play with your mates.
That sounds great.
But yeah, just that kind of like simulation of like making a funny shaped rover, chucking the engine in the middle and whatever else. And it was this perfect mix of half of them were dads and the other half were small kids.
Yeah.
And the dads
I
are more
love
competitive
stuff like
than
that.
the kids, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the kids were just like, yeah, it's just fun. Let's draw a silly shape. And then the dads were like, no, I like what you've done there. Right, okay, let's have a go at this.
They were always like that. Competitives. Yeah.
Right, we've got Cuz in the chat has done some Googling, and he's got Bamzuki.
Bamzuki! Yes, that was it. Yep. Good Googling. That is top draw Google foo. That is it, yeah. That's the one, Bamzuki. Oh, wow. I haven't thought about that in so many years, but that was a cracking TV show. If there are any episodes like on YouTube, I'm going to have to go and binge watch them afterwards.
I was going to say, I've never heard of that one, so I'm going to have to have a little look, I think. Because I like robotics. I really do like robotics. When I was a teenager, one of my favourite kind of things to do was to look through the Maplin catalogue. So the days when Maplin had a physical catalogue, and it was good inch and a half thick. And you used to go through, and there was a robot called the Hero 1 robot. And I always wanted to get it and build it, but it was like stupid amounts of money. It was nothing I could ever have afforded at that time.
What kind of robot was it?
It was a bit like an R2 in a way. It was kind of cylindrical, upright with some wheels. It was
like a little sort of droid kind of
absolutely
roaming robot.
You
nice.
Could roam around and kind of it had a few sensors on it and could bump ultrasonics to avoid.
To be honest, I think I thinking back now, I think I know where to blame my current career. I had Real Robots magazine growing up.
I was going to talk about that because I had it exactly that. Cybot.
Bloody brilliant, wasn't it? Cybot was
really
but
excellent.
They ended up going because I had a subscription to that.
Same,
and I had it, and then all of a sudden it stopped.
You got the controller, and then you started doing some other stuff. And
I got back up to programming and everything.
I kept it for years, and probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I had an A-level student who was wanting to go into electronic engineering, and it's just been sitting in my shed for years. And in fact, I'd inherited from my brother-in-law's father when he'd passed. He'd had 2 lots of it, so I'd inherited a pile of more bits as well. So I said, look, I've got this. It's in a mess. It's in a couple of cardboard boxes. If you want it, you can have it. So I took it in. I don't know if he built anything from it. Some of it was junk, I'm sure.
Last time it popped into my head, I did have a look on eBay.
I bet they're going for big money.
Not as big money as you would imagine.
Really?
There's quite a lot, I think.
Still an accessible amount of money for people who are, kind of had it as a kid and have now got a little bit of disposable income.
Have that nostalgia factor,
I very nearly did buy a full set again. And then talk myself
I must still have mine somewhere at my parents' house. I've got piles and piles of ridiculous things, and I'm subscribed to Where's Wally magazine and all sorts, and we've still got stacks of those somewhere. So I'll have to check. But I took direct inspiration from Real Robots magazine when I was writing. I did another series for New Scientist, where the idea was instead of being just crazy inventions that I'd made and I was talking about, was to show other people how to build things. We did a sort of 10-week how to be a maker sort of course. And there'd just be one project a week, excuse me, building on kind of basic electronics through to the idea was you'd be able to build Biscuit Bot in week 10. And Biscuit Bot was an autonomous line following robot with a biscuit shelf. So when you've got your hands full, with a couple of cups of tea, you've got something to carry your biscuits. So we'd like start out with just like a basic circuit and an LED, and then move on to, you know, adding sensors and adding motors and programming, and in a sort of like 10 projects they're meant to be able to get up to building biscuit bot. And I had so much fun like trying to make each of the projects each week still fun, even though they were demonstrating like a really simple concept. Like I wanted to show how easy it is to make a switch. You just need to make and break a connection in a circuit. So I had just a simple circuit with a buzzer and a battery, and I had 2 bits of tinfoil. I was like, well, the thing is, this is boring. If you just have 2 bits of tinfoil and you touch them together and the buzzer sounds, like, that's fine, but that's not really capturing people's imagination about like what you can actually do with electronics. Even if it's super simple, it can solve problems and it can do interesting, thought-provoking things. So my interesting, thought-provoking idea for this tinfoil switch was the toast notifier. So you put the one piece of tinfoil on a couple of like chopsticks hovering above the lever of your toaster, and the other bit of tinfoil is on the toaster lever. So when your toast is done and the lever pops up, the 2 bits of tinfoil touch and complete the circuit. So if, you know, you're in the bathroom, you know, doing your makeup or getting ready for your day, and you put your toast in, and you need to butter it when it's hot. So you need to know when your toast has popped. Yep. Toast notifier. Yeah. All you need is a battery, a buzzer, a bit of tinfoil.
Genius.
Yeah. That's what electronics can do. That's the power of electronics.
Did you ever play with Lego and the Lego Technics?
I didn't have Lego Technics. I obsessed with Lego. I had actually somewhere behind me there's a Lego spaceship. Whoop.
Oh,
very nice.
So yeah, no, I'm obsessed with Lego, but I never had the Lego Technics. I don't have no idea why now, but yeah.
See, I didn't either. I mean, I grew up with
Must be
Lego.
A Welsh physicist thing.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with Lego. I was constantly taking apart radios and stuff like that as a kid.
That's not Lego, Andy.
I know Lego's the little plastic Lego, but it was kind of electronics, and it was kind of sort of electronics kits with little springs, and you kind of have to put the components in between.
I love those.
150 experiments that you can do with
one,
things like that. But then I discovered when I moved down to Kent, the school I was at, somebody went on a course at the local university, at the University of Kent, as it happens, and came back and said, there's this thing you can do with Lego. There's this competition. Like, really? Okay. It's something called First Lego League. It's like, okay, sounds all right. Yeah, so we can borrow the kit from the university so we can do it. Oh, that sounds good. Will you help? I said, well, I'm quite busy. So it's like, you won't have to do much. I'll do all the paperwork. And then this person then kind of became quite ill and disappeared for quite a long time. And it was like, it had already started. It was like, right. And she had to build, the basic principle is you build, there's several aspects to it, because there's a kind of a project that kind of the kids have to do to kind of solve a problem. But the kind of fun part is building a robot out of Lego with the kind of Lego microcontroller to kind of go on this essentially mission field, this like 8x4 foot set of problems. They've got to kind of some like 3 minutes to kind of go out, get some collect things and kind of activate things.
Was it using like Mindstorms or something?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it started out with the original. It was Mindstorms that it started with, but the time I'd sort of discovered it, it was with the predecessor to the EV3. So it was still Mindstorms, but it was the NXT, sort of the Lego NXT system. And that was absolutely fantastic. And some of the, I mean, I kind of got the kids to develop it, but you kind of sort of saw some of the robots that were developed perhaps by older people, shall we say, and their teams, they used. Well, I have to admit, I saw more than one example of members of staff who were very protective about the robot when it came off. You kind of tell when it's somebody spent hours creating something that's really, really complicated and has some very, very complicated things, and they kind of, I'll take that now and I'll look after that. because
not
I
for
don't
kids.
trust you. Yeah, it's not for kids. You kind of think, yeah, you're not quite playing it fair there, are you? That's yeah, I'll save that rant. But it's fantastic what you can actually do with kind of just something as simple as, I say simple, as Lego, because again, the programming you can do, the electronics that's there, the things that you can actually sort of develop with it. It's a great kind of gateway drug into kind of electronics and engineering and
definitely
things like that.
I had the it was a Lego Technic, like a tipper truck type thing, but it had a barcode reader with it.
Oh wow!
So you got this big sheet, like A2 maybe, just covered in barcodes, and the motor driver battery pack had a little infrared barcode reader on the bottom. So you'd scan it across the barcodes, and that was your way of doing like sequence programming for it to do a set of moves. And it had like touch sensors and a couple of other things. So it wasn't Mindstorm's level of programming stuff, but it was something you could do sat on the floor scanning this big sheet instead of needing to be plugged into a computer. That was loads of fun. That
it's great. It's quite interesting to see the levels of accessibility, because the first Lego League, the first organisation. I mean, the UK, we only really take part in first Lego League, but in the States, first. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's Science Technology is the S and the T. They have kind of a range of events, from stuff for smaller children, kind of sort of single-digit aged children, through to the kind of building robots that are actually quite chunky, not Lego. Aluminium extrusion, solving big problems or doing like basketball type things.
Wow.
And that's really quite, I mean, it's an investment, big investment for the schools that do it, and the organisations. It's not just schools, but it's quite an amazing thing to see.
It's one of the reasons I'm a massive microbit evangelist, because I think that's the sort of the equivalent that we have in the UK. That's something that I'm seeing having some penetration in schools. That's kind of a good starter for any students who are interested in robotics or programming or electronics. The microbit is a really great place to start, and I'm so happy to see it making its way into more classrooms and into more people's hands. But I mean, also for adults as well.
Yeah,
like it's a great first step.
I first found your channel, I was like, I need to do this stuff.
Excellent.
I still haven't managed to get. I've got an 11-year-old daughter. I've got an excuse. But,
not that you need an excuse.
No, but that was
build your toast notifier.
See if you put the toaster on an angle to get the toast to jump out and.
See, that's perfect. This is what we need: toast notifier augmentation. There could be a whole design challenge around that. But yeah, microbit.
Microbit was great. I mean, I'm trying to think how many years ago it is now, because microbit, when it first came out, every student in year 7 in the country was basically given one.
Oh, really?
So schools across the entire country were sent hundreds of these, and it was interesting kind of sort of concept, but it only happened for 1 year. That all the students were kind of given. Yeah. And I know there were some schools that kind of went, well, we could give them out to every student, or we could hang on to enough that we can actually teach it going on. Because if we hand it out, well, some of them won't take them. Some will take them, and that's great. But we won't then have them.
Yeah.
So it's like that. If we keep them, we can. I mean, some schools kind of went, yeah, well, we've got 170 kids, so we'll order 200. So we've also got a class to carry on. Yeah. And some schools, I know some schools kind of went, we've got one for you. If you want it, you can take it. If you don't want it, you don't have to. Yeah. And again, generally, that gave them a class set full. But I know some schools really sort of did push some things into it. But again, it was kind of, right, we've got this for a year. But then schools couldn't afford to then dish them out.
That's an interesting way of doing it.
They couldn't
if you were in the lucky
year
group. Then,
yeah. But it'd be interesting to see whether there's maybe like a It'd be interesting, a bit of kind of research to see, is there a 1 year blip, or is there an increase just from that year onwards of people going into computer science,
those subjects,
and engineering as a result of that?
I'd be really interested to know.
You'd have to get far enough down the line that then, to find out how far, what 10 years before they start seeing the real uptick in computer scientists.
Well, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've been out
11-year-olds,
3 years. Yeah, it was given to 11-year-olds. I've been out 3 years, and I'm pretty sure it was about 5 years before that. So those kids must be kind of sixth form, university level now. But
they'll be getting shuffled straight off into security services or antivirus companies.
Yeah. Be interesting to know.
How to make an LED blink.
But I mean, unfortunately, in my experience, kind of some of these sort of STEM initiatives into schools often don't get kind of any follow-up to some if they've been effective. Which is a shame.
I think as well, it's I mean, only half the question is making the hardware accessible. Like, you can have a classroom full of microbits, but if you haven't got teachers who are enthusiastic or trained in how they work, if you haven't got enough laptops or computers for the kids to go and try and program them, if you don't have a set of activities that showcase what it is that kids can use these to do, why do they care? They're not going to pick these up and just uniquely... kids can be so creative, but they've got to be shown what's possible before they can put together those building blocks in an innovative way and see the power that these things have to create things that interact with the world. It's like... it was brilliant hearing Ruth talk about kids invent stuff, because that's an example of like the incredible creativity and problem solving abilities that kids have that are often so much better than adults who are stuck in a mode of thought that prevents them from seeing obvious or just great solutions to something. And it's about making sure that the kids have the tools that they learn to put together in whatever way they think is best. But, the hardware is only part of the problem. And I think that's one way that YouTube can be really, really powerful, because that's somewhere that, kids are, as Ruth said, it used to be TV, and now lots of kids have access to YouTube and other kind of content platforms like that. And that's where they're getting some of their kind of subsidiary education. So to have a wealth of content out there that kids can access to see what's possible, that's a really exciting opportunity. But I mean, at the same time, you've also got it's an insoluble problem, because you've also got like these YouTube channels where somebody's made a spoof of Peppa Pig where Peppa goes to the dentist and has all her teeth ripped out or something. It's how do you try and manage that? Because at least with TV, it's a different question. You have broadcast regulators and you have programming at a certain time of day aimed at a certain audience, but YouTube's a bit of a Wild West.
I'm dealing with that at the minute, but
because there's lots of amazing content out there, but finding it and making sure that that's the thing that kids have access to over and above the stuff that is maybe less helpful for them. I don't know how you go about that.
It's kind of it's almost like we have to teach. I think we do. We, as we being kind of as a developed nation, we desperately need, from an early age, to teach critical thinking.
Absolutely.
Because we need young people to be able to kind of look at something and go, really?
Yeah.
No, that's that. I mean, we're seeing this now with kind of we'll avoid going further than this, but the pandemic and how people said. The anti-science movement that seems to be growing as a result of social media. And
I suppose influencers are kind of a problem there, though, aren't they? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you've got a bit of a one-way rapport, I suppose, with an influencer that you trust and listen to, if they communicate something wrong, they wouldn't know any different. They would just say, "Oh well, so and so off of YouTube or so and so off the telly said this, or
yeah.
So I suppose
it's
we get into
if you're on a screen, you have a position of authority.
I think you're absolutely right about
good authority, but it's you are an authority.
Yeah, critical thinking and problem solving. That's so key, because I often say that my science degree wasn't really a degree in science. It was a degree in problem solving.
Yeah.
It's about, science is a set of tools to approach problems. And I think that's like a really key thing. And I think that's really important to STEM education as well, because I think that kids can see science as something they're maybe not interested in, or they look at career options and they don't fancy themselves like in a lab coat, staring down a microscope. And that's not really what it's about. Science is a way of approaching questions that interest you and finding the answers. And if it's pitched that way, rather than in a sort of exam focused, you have to learn these facts way, it's empowering. It's a way of answering things.
And it's still fighting the sort of stereotypes.
Yeah.
One of the things I used to do was to go into primary schools and work with. My last 2 jobs have been with grammar schools. So one of the things that we would typically do is to go into primary schools and work with the gifted and talented students in primary schools to kind of try and maybe encourage them to kind of go for grammar schools. I mean, partially as a marketing thing. That's why the school encouraged me to do it, to encourage more students to come to the school so that the school could grow, etc. But for me, it was about actually kind of getting more people involved in knowing about science. And in practice, it wasn't just the gifted and talented students. It was kind of just students that the primary school teachers thought might benefit from it in a small group environment, doing something really interesting. And one of the first things I would often do is to kind of depend on the school. I had different things for different schools, depending on the size and environment, etc. But I would often start with a kind of essentially a PowerPoint saying, I'm going to show you 20 people. You've got a little worksheet. The numbers 1 to 20. I want you to tick the boxes for those who you think are scientists. So you'd have the kind of wild-haired old man with glasses, lab coat, classic sort of thing, and you'd have a bunch of those, and you'd have a number of women, a female astronaut. There were a few kind of red herrings, like the
surely they couldn't be scientists.
The creator of SpongeBob SquarePants. So it'd be him with a kind of SpongeBob SquarePants sort of shirt on and a kind of picture of SpongeBob. So a whole bunch of it, and they'd say about half of them were scientists. In practice, they all were. All the women, all the old people, all the young people, the people, the inventor of, I can't remember his name now, but the developer of SpongeBob SquarePants was a marine biologist, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of
fantastic.
Based on his.
I didn't know that.
Knowledge.
That's great.
Yeah. And it was just kind of you're trying to break down those stereotypes, and they all were scientists. Right? Oh, not just the people in the lab coats. I sit there in a lab coat with glasses on. I've got glasses on my head as well. And kind of like
going, 2 pairs of glasses at least.
And trying to just break down that misconception that it's about working in a lab, and it's about being kind of an old bloke with glasses and crazy hair. And I think it's something we do still need to kind of combat.
For sure. I remember as part of my degree, I did a course in communicating science, and it involved going into school and doing some teaching. And we had to do like a big sort of final project where we'd take a lesson on something, and we kind of had free choice over what we were doing. And I basically did a problem solving skills workshop for this year 9 class. And my aim was basically just to show how you can apply science in lots of different situations that you wouldn't think are necessarily, they're not in a lab, like looking down a microscope. They're not like a traditional idea of science, but science still applies. It's still relevant and interesting. So one part of it would be like movie mistakes. I'd play clips from famous movies that they would have seen and just be like, why is this wrong? What would really happen? Like, what physical laws have we broken in this scene? I can spot 5. Like, how many can you spot? I think one of the ones I played was...
Why wouldn't that car flip over that way?
Yeah. Well, one of the ones was Indiana Jones, when he gets in that fridge and there's like a nuclear explosion. It was like, how many G's do we think that Indiana has experienced at this point? And how many are fatal to the human body? And then I also turned a test tube invisible. Because magic is science too. Like, that's such an easy trick. Yeah. It's literally just, well, I'm not going to spoil it. I know it's going to be everyone's homework that they have to go and find out how to do it.
With the bottle and the things and
the bottle and the things. There's more than one way to turn a test tube invisible. Because for me, it was the test tube in water, and then you fill it up with a particular. You fill up the test tube with a different substance, and some trickery with refractive indices means that the light just acts like the test tube isn't there.
Match the
I think I'm
refractive
thinking
index.
of buoyancy and identity in a 2-litre bottle. I was thinking of.
Yes,
the Cartesian diver, I suspect.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
But
yeah, these kids were just, their minds were blown. We'd created invisibility, and we'd taken apart Indiana Jones films. And I was like, this is what every day could be like if you're a scientist.
Hollywood
it's not
Science.
boring. It's not all maths.
Do you remember Hollywood Science?
Hollywood Science?
Yeah, with Robert Llewellyn, Crichton, Robot Wars, and Scrappy
Challenge.
Scrappy Challenge, yeah.
Yes,
fully charged YouTube show.
With, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy he had on. The guy who had on was one of my tutors. He was a PhD student when I was at university. I'm trying to remember his name. He was on Rough Science as well. That was a program I used to love, Rough Science.
Yes, I absolutely loved that.
That was one of my favourite programs.
Who are you thinking of from that then?
It's the guy with curly hair. He had a website called Creative Science. No, he's a physicist. Youngish guy. He's only kind of I say youngish guy.
Yeah.
Youngish guy. He was the youngest guy when I was at university. So he's
Don't mind me.
It's about 3 years
Technical
older
difficulties.
than me.
Yeah, I know you mean, but I can't remember his name.
I shall have to look it up. He had a website called Creative Science. I shall have to look it up. He used to do things like wrapping loudspeaker wire around a film pot, put a magnet inside it, having an LED attached to the two ends of the wire, shake the film pot with the kind of coil of wire around it, and induces a current, and you light the LED.
I want to say Jonathan something.
Jonathan Hare.
There you go.
I think it's Jonathan Hare. I think I shall double check and put it in the show notes. But yeah, he was a good guy. Nice guy.
He seemed
and things like that.
Yeah, he did some amazing stuff on Rough Science. It's very, very, very cool introduction to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Kate Humble, and it was quite a good team. I enjoyed that. They should bring that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think they did about 4 or 5 seasons in the end.
I'd like to say 6.
Oh, maybe.
I think I've got 6, but I may have to look that up. I know I've got some of them still on DVD somewhere. Occasionally, used to kind of pull them out for lessons.
As we were talking before about the everyday science and how science isn't all like lab coat stuff. My friend did things the other way around. She called herself a tooth fairy. She was doing work with stem cells from
amazing
milk teeth that were taken out from kids in the dentist. So she'd be going to the dentist, collecting a load of milk teeth, and then extracting all the stem cells from that.
Yeah,
that's mad.
So that's taking it in the other
I love
direction.
it. Yeah.
We've had a few comments in the chat. The first one is to ask where you went for your last birthday. Something regarding Lego.
Legoland. Legoland
Yes.
Windsor.
Yeah, good place.
It's amazing. It's a stupendous
It's good being an
place.
adult child, isn't it?
Oh, so good. It's just excellent. It's genuinely just a great theme park. Like it doesn't matter how old you are, you know.
Exactly. 8 to 80.
You know, yeah.
As they say.
Miniland, anyone can appreciate that. You know, you go around and look at like, you know, all of the models of places you visited and places you haven't been in Lego. And then they've got rides and they have Lego fries. Lego fries. Like, I'm a complete child and marketing works extremely well on me. So as soon as I saw like the sign outside one of the restaurants saying we have Lego fries, it's like, well, that's it. That I'm going to have to buy at least one portion. And it's literally it's mashed potato like stuffed into like a mold of like Lego brick shapes and fried.
I mean, it doesn't change how much I want them.
Exactly.
It doesn't undersell it by explaining it.
They didn't even taste that good, but I swear to God, the next time I'm going there, I'm still going to buy Lego fries. And I did try and make a little Lego tower with them. They stack, but they don't build the same way as like the plastic equivalent.
Do you need like a ketchup binder or something just to keep them together?
That's a good idea. See, now I have to go back and try that. Yeah.
For science.
For science. It's an experiment.
Destroy the structural integrity, you know. Yeah. You need more than one portion.
What about acetone? Because acetone destroys like real Lego bricks, but then I think that it wouldn't be as much of an edible experiment.
Yeah, imbibing acetone's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. Disclaimer, anybody listening, we are not recommending, do not try this at home.
Acetone instead of vinegar. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Also, don't glue your Lego bricks together with acetone because they don't come apart. Oh, sorry, don't
That's
weld
what they do at
your
the
Lego
park,
bricks.
though, isn't it?
Yeah.
They do that with all the giant models they make at the park because otherwise all the kids come along and like pick individual bricks off of like, you know, Superman or whatever character. Yeah.
Well, when I took on first Lego League at the school, and it was like we borrowed some kit from the university, but then I discovered that hidden in some cupboard far away in a different part of the school was some of the original. I'm trying to remember what they were called. The original Mindstorms, the yellow controller. They had some of those and some kits because somebody previously had been involved in it quite a few years earlier, and some of the bits had been glued together. It was like so annoying that you kind of getting these bits of Lego glued together. It's like the whole point of Lego is that you can take it apart. So, like throwing stuff away. Yeah,
like the movie references.
David Wheeler has pointed out that the follow-on from First Lego League is First Tech Challenge and First Robotics competition. I know there were plans to bring First Robotics into the UK, but I don't think it happened. I might be wrong, and I'm out of education now, so I kind of don't necessarily get those inputs. But I think it would have been good. But I think for school, a lot of schools would have said it's too expensive because the kits, the base kits, were quite expensive to get started, and it was at a time when funding for schools was being cut massively. We've got Kieran saying he stole his son's microbit after he got bored with it.
Nice. I fully support that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing about microbits, you have to get more than one. Because one of the best things that they've got is that really easy radio communication between them.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. And like the range on it, like across like a field, say, it's like 40 meters or something. You get like a little bit less if it's, you know, indoors and you've got things that are interfering with the radio signal.
Yeah.
But it can be up to like 40 meters or something. So imagine doing that across the playground. It's just like crazy.
It's 5 volts, isn't it? Or 3.3?
3.3. Yeah. You just need like 2 AA's to run it.
In fact, they came with little, when they were issued, they came with a little...
the little battery packs you can...
on a USB.
So I don't feel left out.
Yeah.
Little...
Just because you both I just didn't want to feel left out.
Oh, yeah. We're just all going to like demonstrate like this is the universal symbol for AA batteries. For the audio
listeners later in the week.
You just have to do like a sort of it looks a little bit like a T-Rex claw, like, you know.
Battery pack sized C out of my hand.
Yeah. That should be like a secret greeting for makers now, like just Are you one of us?
Double A's.
Triple A's.
You got any?
Yeah.
I feel like when you said like, oh, double A's, it felt like you were going to like open a trench coat and there's going to be all these batteries down like the inside. Like, can I interest you in some double A's?
Some 18650s down here if you want.
Oh, that's the heavy stuff.
Can I get these CR30s?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2032s.
2032s.
Good for throwies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another comment from Damo Ujukapivi, who's if you don't know him, Hannah, he is a faculty leader for technology in a school in Australia.
Oh, fantastic.
And he's commented that he's got microbits and Lego Mindstorms at work, plus Sphero and Arduino and a couple of others he can't call the name of.
Fabulous.
Duncan from Little Hobby Shop says it was his son's year group, so they'd now be in year 12.
Right.
So we've mentioned for the benefits of the people in other countries, year 9 in the UK is ages 13 to 14, and year 12 is ages 16 to 17. So that's kind of goes up to UK education, goes up to year 13, which kind of ends at age 18.
So that was the group that had the microbits given out to them. You are now that kind of 16-year-old-ish.
So so that'd be five years ago or so. Yeah. A few people have commented, sort of Kieran going, science is magic, and
magic is science.
Sleep in a Lego pirate ship.
I'd love to have
magic
like
is
Lego
science
furniture.
yet to be explored.
Yeah.
Cushions might be needed for seats, I think, and an armrest.
Didn't there used to be like a Lego hotel? Wasn't there like? Didn't they make? Or a Lego house? Was it? I'm sure I've seen that on a TV program. Maybe like. I think that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. I can't imagine how expensive that would be. Because I was pricing up Lego bricks to try and like make a model of something. And if you just kind of go like, oh yeah, I just need a couple of kilos of Lego bricks. Even if you just look for assorted ones, it's like the price is
colossal,
eye-watering.
It'd probably be cheaper to buy the kit to make the bricks. Buy an injection molder and a load of raw ABS plastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got a thing though. We used to get given quite a lot of Lego when we would, because I ran First Lego League for quite a few years, and we'd often get people because we were quite successful. So we'd kind of get people kind of donating Lego, because you could use the rule basically was you could use the NXT kit or then the EV3 kit when that came in with however many motors it could run. And you couldn't use any extras. So you couldn't kind of have one set of motors for one bit and then swap over for another set of motors. You only had the sort of motors you started out with. But you could use any Lego and whatsoever. So if it was made by Lego, you could use it. So if you wanted a pirate ship sail to kind of sort of decorate it, if it was the Lego pirate ship sail, you could use it.
Fabulous.
If it didn't have the palm tree on it, then
so we would get given kind of, people go, oh look, I've got this box of Lego. Yeah, my kids have grown up now, they don't want it anymore. It'd be like sets of Lego, like some usable, some couldn't. But you get like mega blocks in it. And I had this kind of sort of thing with whenever it came in, I'd say to the lads, look, we've got this new delivery, have a little sort through. Any mega blocks we're getting rid of.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, they'd go through and say, and just like, totally, all the mega blocks gotta go.
I wonder if you could build like a sorter for that, like those coin sorters you get, or like the plastic recycling. I wonder if you could do like, I
wonder if the density is different. Maybe
I bet it must be. I bet it is. Yeah,
it is, because the colours are different as well. Now, actually, sort of doing it electronically would be actually quite hard. But the kids got really good, and I got really good at spotting the fake Lego amongst the real Lego.
That's such a niche skill, but I love it.
Yeah. If you get into
a known CRI LED or a light source, I suppose, and a really good camera, you could do the colour matching. And to be fair,
because there's already like loads of people have done lots of different I love the Skittles one, like the Skittles sorting by colour and
because the EV3 light sensor is really quite powerful. It is quite good. It will detect quite small changes in sort of colour. The old NXT ones weren't quite so good, and the problem with the NXT ones, there was a couple going around that weren't genuine Lego. In fact, we got caught out with that one year because we bought it because we thought, oh, we can solve a problem with a colour sensor, and we bought this colour sensor for about 40 quid or something, so it wasn't sort of a cheap little thing, and it turned out it wasn't a genuine Lego part, so we weren't allowed to use it. It was just like so frustrating. But
you could use Lego to detect Lego.
Yes,
in theory, you could make a Lego robot that can detect Lego.
Very meta.
That's fantastic.
I mean, there are Lego sorters. I mean, if you look at kind of some people take multiple EV3s, and they literally will be able to sort Lego by kind of sort of size and color. So you could take we've got 1,000 2x2 blocks. Yeah, it will sort them into the kind of categories.
Oh, that's amazing.
By shifting things back and forth, detecting the color, shifting things around. There's some great Lego engineering out there.
I so love watching those robots working. Even coin sorters or But then as well, that's another one of those things where you can solve a problem in a complicated way or an easy way. Because I've seen all of these really incredibly detailed robots with machine learning algorithms and computer vision to look at something and know what it is. But then I also saw this excellent video of some people sorting melons into barrels of different sized melons, and all they did was get 2 sticks that were in sort of a V shape and roll the melons down, and the point at which they fell through was how big the melon was. Size. So it was that easy to sort the size of these melons. And in my head, if I'd had to solve that problem, I know I definitely would have created a robot with 5 arms and 82 sensors. I still probably wouldn't have done as good a job.
The level of education now is to a point where that would be the thing. It would be computing power. It would be an engineering department. It would be the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Or one bloke in his 70s who comes over, grabs 2 sticks off the thing with sticks on it, and then just goes, "There you go."
No, the difference between knowledge and wisdom, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I like watching some of these videos, how things are made.
Love it.
Kind of work in the factory. Like a paperclip.
Yeah.
Just how a paperclip gets folded and cut.
Yeah.
It's just to me it magical in a way, but it's engineering in application, and it's fascinating to watch.
Well, I mean, in a kind of in a roundabout sort of vaguely on topic way of all this. I know you guys are the physicists in the group, but I did a bit of chemistry back in my day.
Oh, chemistry.
So
it's applied physics.
Yeah, it's basically.
I was the smelly one in school. You guys were the smart ones. But I was in a chemistry club. We were in a national chemistry competition with the school, and we did a presentation on plastics. So I made a Lego machine that would make nylon filament.
Oh wow!
So nylon is just a mix of 2 chemicals. You stack them on top of one another in the beaker, and where they join,
the reaction happens at the interface. Yeah.
So where the interface, you can pull the filament out. So I made a Lego machine that would transfer. It was just a bunch of geared rollers that would then pull this filament out from the pot into and put it up in a thing. Sort of like looping through, science and education.
That's fantastic.
Well, one of the things I came because when I was sort of doing this sort of stuff, they're constantly. I got called, Mr. Lego, Dr. Lego, all sorts of things. I mean, I've not got a PhD, but just get it. I was the Lego guy. In fact, one of my leaving present from my last but one school is on the wall behind me there, which I'm pointing to. And it's a picture frame, and inside is a customized Lego minifigure.
Amazing.
It was made to look like me. So it's got glasses. It's got a beard.
What colour's the beard?
So I was known as the Lego guy around school.
You can't ever shave now because you've got to stay matching your Lego.
Yeah, it's not going to happen anyway. But I've
also got to sit like
shave.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why my hands go like this. Yeah.
Double 8.
But it's I was just constantly bombarded with, and just constantly. It's like when you start looking for something. It's just constantly seeing Lego everywhere. And I came across an article of a.
No, I think that's just you, Andy.
A biochemist researcher in Cambridge who didn't have enough funds for a piece of kit that would have saved him lots and lots and lots of work. But so he made his own version of the machine with Lego and an EV3.
Amazing.
So it was, I can't remember if it was taking samples at kind of fixed time intervals or whether it was kind of sort of dropping samples into kind of the micro titration tubes. But it basically he automated his process using 200 quid's worth of Lego because he couldn't afford a 30 grand
4 bricks these days
machine.
Yeah,
And it's just like it's amazing how people will apply these sort of principles in order to just applying these things, like color sorting and kind of vision. It is things that people do in industry.
But I kind of think that one of my favorite things is just seeing people use amazing technologies for just completely dumb stuff for fun, or just like applying it where it's just not relevant, just to see what happens. Like during January, I just thought it'd be really fun to try and get a neural net to make dot-to-dot patterns. And it was a disaster, and I had so much fun. It was great. But I mean, it meant I sacrificed about like a day of my life, like trawling the internet for hundreds and hundreds of dot-to-dot patterns, like resizing them to the exact same dimensions and like preparing this data. And I still only got about like a training set of about 300 images. And really, if you want to kind of train up a good computer model, 500 is about the minimum kind of sample size that you want to be starting off with. Ideally, you want thousands of examples of the thing that you want it to then be able to create. But I put in my 300 images and sent it through several epochs of training. And it was like a pre-trained model that it had been trained on illustrations. So it kind of knew how to draw. And I just fed it all of these dot-to-dot patterns. And I kind of thought it was going to be a really simple problem for this computer, because I thought it was just dots. Like, it's black and white. You don't have to deal with anything colorful, and it's just dots, like arranged. It'll be able to do that. But the fact that the patterns were so repetitive actually just completely confused the algorithm, and I ended up with these kind of disgusting, kind of warty, like horrible, distorted images. And where it had actually just managed to start creating numbers, it was over-representing like 10, 20, 30, because it couldn't tell the difference between a 0 and the dot that it was next to. Because, of course, they're both circular. And I hadn't thought about that. So you had like all these dot-to-dots that were like 10, 20, 30, 30, 30, 20, 10. It's like, what do I connect to what here? And there'd also been this over-representation of like bird-shaped dot-to-dot patterns. Just because I happened to find one website that had like every species of bird in dot-to-dot format. So a good chunk of the training data ended up being birds. And the original training data that the machine learning model had seen was illustrations from like natural history textbooks. So it had already seen birds. And it got to this training data with a ton of birds and went, I know this. I can do birds. You want horrible, distorted, black and white, splotchy birds? I can do that. We basically ended up with that, but coupled with the sort of circle motif that it had picked up, the dot-to-dot patterns, we ended up with and I hate to bring the tone down of your wonderful podcast, but what we affectionately called the penis owls. Because we had these shapes that were like just sort of the main body of them was sort of vaguely phallic, but there was this kind of point that was obviously the face, where there was sort of like some semblance of like bird character and something looking a bit like an eye, but again with this kind of like nested circle motif, and it was truly hideous. And it's one of the worst and best things that I've done simultaneously.
I mean, that sounds like it needs its own website.
It's a project I'm hoping to resurrect. Literally this afternoon, I've been looking for some more pictures of dot-to-dot patterns so that I can expand my training set to see. Because it would be... A lot of people have said, like, why don't you write some code to generate dot-to-dot patterns that you can then feed into this machine? But that feels like cheating. I think that then the machine learning algorithm is just trying to reverse engineer the code that I've written rather than learn to actually create dot-to-dot patterns. So I'm determined that I'm just going to waste some more days of my life trawling the internet for dot-to-dot patterns for the sake of science.
Maybe that's some great homework for the guys listening. Yeah.
That if anybody fancies just, trawling the internet and providing me with as many dot-to-dot images as they can be bothered, hello@hannahmakes.com. Hit up my inbox, fill it with dot-to-dot.
I've got a dot-to-dot book knocking around here somewhere with a load
of
scan them all in. Stuff.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
That's it now.
Who knows what they'll become? If the birds ended up as penis owls, then you have no idea what those buildings will be turned into in the mind of a robot. But
a lot of them look vaguely phallic anyway to begin with.
yeah. I don't think it's going to improve our chances. But who knows? Yeah, I'm really hoping that like round 2 of this project comes out with something that, if it just has enough things that look like dots and enough things that look like numbers, that we can kind of connect them, that would be ideal. And
so what you're saying is we really want to get the right images so that we can connect the dots.
Yeah. I think it's going to be spectacular. Yeah. That was definitely my favourite project in January.
I can absolutely see why.
Yeah.
We've had a correction in the chat from Duncan. So it's no, year 13, so kind of 17 to 18.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Given another year back. Yeah. It's and Joe said, referring back to something obviously earlier about our robots, sounds like Furbies in The Simpsons that were programmed to murder all other toys.
That was in relation to the Lego sorter.
Yes.
The Furbies sorting the other Furbies out.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, a couple of people.
Furbies are deeply sinister, so I can imagine that.
They really are. I'm pretty certain we smashed one up with a hammer once because it was just too creepy. I might have just in a fever dream.
Some toys are though, aren't they? You kind of got to wonder how people sleep at night, having invented it. It's like, with this sort of evil toy designer who's kind of go, now what will creep out kids the most? But we can kind of, if we put a bit of fur fabric on it, they'll kind of think that it's okay.
And yet, it definitely looks worse without the fur.
Yeah,
definitely looks scarier. But I had a Furby that like ended up with a really interesting fault. I ended up with world's sleepiest Furby.
Just take the batteries out.
Well, you'd switch it on, and you'd like try and interact with the thing, and it would just yawn and say "me sleep again," and then just go back to sleep. But it happened every single time you tried to switch it on. It just my Furby was just bored of playing with me, and it just went to sleep forever. And I'd never heard of anybody else's Furby doing that, and that seems like such a weird fault for it to develop. It wasn't like, like a short circuit, or like it wasn't like something broke and it couldn't move its mouth, or like a motor burned out or something. Literally, it just decided it just wanted to sleep and nothing else.
That's going to have been some.
So
code
what was the
somewhere.
sleep trigger? Yeah, is it a code, or is it something in the trigger? Is there a trigger mechanism?
Yeah, who knows?
A sensor.
It's going to be some programmer somewhere just every now and then just putting a different file into it to just mess one up on the line.
Yeah.
Or could be kind of a piece of, because the ROM, I guess it'd be an EEPROM of some sort, would have been programmed en masse. But if a bit of cosmic radiation just happened to strike a particular
like flip a bit, yeah,
it could be simple as that.
So cosmic rays made my Furby sleepy.
Yeah, that could be a good story.
that's the excuse that it does that to me all the time.
I've got to say that would make a cracking headline, though, wouldn't it? Like cosmic rays, like made my Verby sleepy.
I can see it now on the Ars Technica or something like that.
Yeah.
There used to be a really good kind of. It's still going, I think. A program for schools called CERN at Schools. So kind of, the CERN, the European Centre for Nuclear Research. School in Canterbury did most of the work. I've forgotten the name of the professor. She was a professor who was in charge of it. It developed a chip. Basically, it was a chip that CERN used, but they managed to put it onto a circuit board that could be sent around schools. Basically, you got a little briefcase. She had this little detector that was about kind of 2 inches by 1 by 6 inches, connecting to a laptop, and you could just stick it down on kind of a lab bench, and it would detect muons and other radiation in this chip. So cosmic radiation, it's good, great for bringing in kind of relativity, because you've got this idea that muons that have such a small half-life, they should never get from the upper atmosphere with the cosmic radiation it's striking kind of nitrogen atoms, and then kind of generating these muons that, because they're traveling such high speed, find themselves on the surface of the Earth, and being able to actually detect that and go, look, that track there. So it's a bit like a electronic,
like a little cloud chamber. Yeah.
And she could actually sort of say, look, that track there is a muon because it's going in that direction.
That's
and
crazy.
We've just detected that on that bit of kit that's sitting on the bench over there.
That's so great.
And it's kind of...
The thing that I love about that, it isn't the chip itself. It isn't the whole concept of it. It isn't the idea of it. It's the thing that I think is most fantastic about that whole bit that you've just explained there, Andy, is the fact that the kids don't need to understand what muons are or any of that physics. It's the fact that they know it is real by how excited you got then.
yeah.
So look, it's a muon on the thing.
Yeah.
What's a muon, sir?
Because now I want to know.
I used to do stuff like that. But then I get straight in, because I've got this thing like about how things are manufactured. Somewhere there is a factory that makes toothbrushes, but there's also a factory that makes filament for making the brushes of toothbrushes.
Yeah.
And it's just mind blowing that it's kind of this whole meta.
And there's a factory that makes the machines that go in the factory that makes the bristles that goes to the factory that makes the toothbrushes. Yeah, it's mad. But looping back just quickly, a fun CERN related fact. I passed up the opportunity to be one of the co-discoverers of the Higgs boson, technically.
Why?
Your shocked faces. Why? Why would you do such a thing? Because when I was doing my master's and I was looking for a master's project, one of the potential projects that we could take on was calculating expected background radiation at CERN. Because to know if you've got something, you have to take what you expect to see, the background radiation, away from the signal that you've got to see what's left, to know if you've made a detection or not.
Isn't it?
Exactly that. But it turns out those calculations, incredibly necessary, very important, also
incredibly
staggeringly boring. Yeah. So mind-numbingly boring that they were just farming it off to master's students across the country to get all of the background calculations that they needed. But it meant that if you contributed that, you'd technically be helping to discover the Higgs boson by doing these necessary calculations, get your name on the paper, because your work would have to be referenced to make this discovery. But it was just so boring that we decided against, me and the partner I did my master's with decided not to do that. But the thing is
you've got that as a story now, which is
exactly. It's an even better story than I am technically one of the co-discoverers of the Higgs boson. It's the story about how I was nearly a co-discoverer of the Higgs boson. Just as good of a story, and I don't have to do the boring calculations.
But you get to play with the phrasing of it as well, as to who your audience is. It's like, I could have been part of it, but I just passed it off because I wanted to do something more fun, more important.
Superfluid helium was just calling to me, so
I can see why that is ridiculously fascinating.
Yeah.
It is. It's interesting.
I did theoretical physics. It's a complete wonder how I've ended up doing a job where I build things physically, because I was so bad in lab in physics that I ended up switching onto the theoretical degree so that I didn't have to do any lab work. I was genuinely terrible. We did an experiment where we were meant to try and measure the Earth's magnetic field. And we all know kind of roughly what that is. We did this experiment and I managed to get it so wrong that I had overestimated the Earth's magnetic field by a couple of orders of magnitude, to the point where if I was right, all of the iron in your blood would be ripped out of your body and like dragged to the center of the Earth. And I was just sort of like, trying to write up this experiment and like, having to write lines like, I mean, the error bars that you will see on the graph span a couple of orders of magnitude, but our answer is correct to within plus or minus 10,000. Yeah, it was
plus
a complete disaster.
Death or very death.
Yeah. Which flavor of death? Yeah. But instead, I did the theoretical degree, and so we didn't get to play with real superfluid helium. We were just kind of theorizing about what would happen if you had a thin film of helium on a graphite substrate, and what kind of structure it would create, how the atoms would arrange themselves. Which we made some really cool graphs that looked like 60s wallpaper. But, it wasn't discovering the Higgs boson, and we didn't get to play with real helium. So naturally, I progressed on to building things for real, being paid to do it in a massive workshop, despite having overestimated the Earth's magnetic field by 2 orders of magnitude. So anyone out there who's struggling with physics lab, know that there is hope.
Where did you study your physics in?
Imperial College.
Yeah, we've just had that question from James Molten Make.
Oh yeah. Do you know what?
Yes.
I think I might know James from Molten Make.
Yeah.
I think we might have gone to Imperial together. He can tell me in the chat now if I'm right.
He's shot me a WhatsApp.
And maybe he doesn't want to out himself as like knowing me in real life. That's fine. I don't blame him at all.
I guess it depends on the stories, doesn't it? It depends on the stories that might be told. Yeah.
Well,
maybe in the post chat you could tell us if there's any good stories about James.
To be honest, I think the way it's going to work. Yeah, which way round it's going to work is it's going to come off worse for me than it is for him. Like I can guarantee that.
This is where I could play you both off against each other now, because I've got him on the WhatsApp throwing messages at me, and obviously you in the live here. So you've obviously got the audience.
We could do trivia.
Well, no, I was just thinking, that obviously it's whichever the highest bid is to not pass the information through, keep the stories away.
Well, we've got a statement in the chat. Midnight LOTR, which I'm guessing is Lord of the Rings.
I mean, we've got many stories.
I think this is going to be because we'll be seeing James next weekend, actually, Andy and I.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic!
This will be some good.
Yeah, give us some fodder after in the post chat. You can give us some fodder that we can take with us.
I will. I'm thinking on it now.
Oh, fantastic!
So let's move off from university for the moment, because I don't think my face can cope with this any longer. So big workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're picking up. You're as you've mentioned already, electronics is kind of the main thing, and you've talked about picking up welding and playing with 6-axis, 7-axis robots.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting you're working for a company that makes special effects. You've told us that. So I mean, kind of. Obviously, you can't tell us about projects that are currently being worked on, because NDAs and the like, which is all kind of very understandable. But kind of are we talking kind of I've forgotten the name of it. The New Zealand workshop place that does Lord of the Rings. Not Where, that's the screwdrivers. Weta, yeah. Weta workshops. So we're talking about British Weta workshops, kind of making swords and armor and
or like
make all kinds of things.
Nitrogen cannons for flipping cars and
yeah. Well, I mean, so we've got a lot of technicians that are skilled in lots of different things that I have no idea of. So we, as a company, do lots of pyrotechnics and like floor effects. So kind of rain and snow and fog and atmosphere and wind and all of that. And we blow stuff up. And that's been like really good fun because quite often we're doing tests in the car park. And so if you get into the workshop in the morning and the barrier to the car park is down and no one's parked in the car park, there's probably going to be some loud bangs. And it's just like it's the weirdest part is how quickly it becomes normal.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
You'll just be like, I'll be in the electronics room. I'll be like doing a bit of soldering. At the minute I've got a whole bunch of boards for some props that I can't talk about that I'm soldering up, and it's SMD, and I hadn't soldered SMD components before, and we've got some of the tiny like 0603 LEDs to place and all of that stuff. I saw your
practicing, and you did pretty damn well on that chip.
Thank you. I mean, I did have about like 20 of them to do or something. That was like.
Was that? Yeah.
I can't remember which number that was. But,
for the benefits of those listening who aren't into electronics, SMD would be
surface mount device. So soldering where you have the tiny components. So often, if a lot of listeners and viewers will be familiar with like the LEDs that you see where you make throwies or something, and they've got the two metal legs sticking out of them.
Yeah.
And often with kind of soldering those, you'll have like a board that's got a couple of holes in, and you poke the legs through the holes and you solder on the other side. And that's through hole soldering. And I mean, that's tricky enough.
Which has been the norm for decades.
For a long time. Yeah. And I mean, lots of people who work with microcontrollers will know that the little header pins, the pokey outy bits that you put the little wires on, as I call them. Technical terms. Yeah, very technical. Those are all through hole soldered. You kind of poke the pokey bits through the holes and then solder them on. The SMD stuff is where you have just one side of the board where you're putting a component and you've just got to put a blob of solder on both ends, and the pad is on the surface. Both pads are on the surface of the board, and it's surface mounts. But the thing that makes it really tricky is usually the surface mount components are really, really small. Like very small, like fraction of a grain of rice small. Pick them up with tweezers, you pick them up too hard and they ping off into oblivion small.
Never to be found again. Yeah.
Have happened so many. I wasted nearly a whole pack of capacitors last week. Like seriously, my grip strength must be just too much for the little capacitors. Because you just go to pick them up and squeeze them too tight and they just disappear. But yeah, they're really fiddly. And, I'm there and I've got about like 3 lamps on my desk to try and get enough light to do this. I've got like one of those brilliant like magnifying glasses on like a kind of gooseneck stand, and you kind of put it in front of you. I've got like a microscope to check my work with as well because it's that small. And I'm doing this. And then over the PA system in the workshop, I hear there's going to be a loud bang in the car park in 5 minutes. And you have to just down tools if you're working on something like that and just give it a second until whatever it is they're exploding in the car park has done exploding. Because if you're in the middle of trying to place one of those tiny LEDs and someone just like blows up a car in the car park, you're going to do much worse than just ping the LED off to the other side of the workshop and put the iron through the board or something. So
I remember an old mate of mine used to work for a large electronics manufacturer that happens to be somewhere in Wales. We'll leave it there. But he was saying that back when he was doing like assembly line production stuff, it was actually more cost effective. If he dropped one of the components, it was more cost effective to just grab another one and try again.
Yeah.
than it was for him to bend down and pick the component up off the floor.
Yeah. Because they cost like fractions of a penny depending on like the bulk that you buy them in.
Exactly.
And especially if you're in a production environment where you're just kind of trying to make as many of them as possible, as quickly as possible, I can very much imagine that it wouldn't be worth his time to pick up like 10
exactly.
more.
And that was it. And you think it's crazy to think of that, in that sense of like, a person's time in a production environment to just, accidentally drop components and leave them there at your feet versus like, we're talking about things like Maplin and CPC and RS and things before. When you look at buying 4 capacitors and it's £2 or £3.
Yeah.
I think like from the industrial scale, it's like, no, you get like a roll of SMD ones that are, all the same rating, but for a tenth of the price.
Well, I mean, I bought like little 80 tiny processor chips to have a play with, and like a little kind of chip clip for programming them. I've just been sort of moving into that because I want board design is something that I want to, start skilling up in. But I'd never seen, so I just bought like a couple of them and they cost like about £1 each when I buy them off like RS Components or somewhere. And I think that's quite good going because these processors can do incredible mind-blowing things that like a whole Arduino can do for like £1. That seems like a really good deal to me. But then you see like the trays of them that they sell if you're in like a production environment and you're making a ton of boards, and it's just like a tray of 100 of them, and like which drives down the cost per processor. And I'd never seen these like whole like plastic kind of dented trays that, and oh my god though, I hated handling those because just the thought that you were going to drop that and like 100 processors would just be on this like dusty workshop floor like everywhere. And apparently that's happened before in the workshop, and it was not a fun day, especially after I had a tray of like 50 of them. And I was like burning bootloaders and code onto them for a set of props we were making, and we were making spares. So basically I think it was something like 8 different kinds of props. So I was burning the same bootloader but different code onto like these 50 chips. And I was doing 20 of one, 6 of another, 6 of an, and sort of putting them in the tray in the right place. Carrying that tray back to another bench afterwards. If you drop that and you've got 50 processors all with like just some mixture of code on, and it's like lucky dip what prop you've just like soldered. Oh, that's
something that should be flashing.
It scared me.
It's now spinning around. And
yeah, exactly. So that was incredibly stressful, but that was fine. But now I've said that, I might go in tomorrow and just like sneeze while carrying a tray of processors.
Color code them.
Entirely possible.
Have some bottles of
yes,
nail varnish, coloured nail varnish.
I asked about that, but somebody said that some kinds of nail varnish can eat through the plastic that like covers the chip.
Yes, it probably would.
Yeah, tone in the nail varnish.
Yeah.
The white, the top layer.
I think it depends. You'd probably need to experiment with it. But because I've
coloured dots.
You can pencil on the top of them. Pencil's like fine on the top of them. You can't see it amazingly, but we use that to mark the ones that like just because if you have a tray of like enough of them, some of them just decide that they don't want to accept any code or bootloader and just don't work. So you put a big cross on the top of them so that if somebody finds it and goes, "Oh, you dropped one," no, that one doesn't work. Like, so you could probably like just pencil the little. But it's still not going to be a fun day when you've got like the 50 of them to sort through off the floor.
Yeah, got a suggestion from Eric actually in the chat. UV cured nail varnish should be solvent free.
Ah, okay. Maybe. It's a good tip.
You just need one of those kind of UV things.
Just make sure that the EEPROM's covered just in case it's a UV resettable.
Yeah.
Yeah, good tip. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
I've kind of used sort of nail varnish. I've still got a bottle of clear somewhere that I've used for stuff.
You look great.
Yeah. UV stuff. I used to put UV when doing UV electromagnetic spectrum. I used to put kind of UV sensitive nail varnish on my. That was quite good.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, it's just I'm surprised how these little things, isn't it? So do you get to, obviously you're making stuff for tasks, but do you get opportunity to kind of experiment with things and develop skills as an aside in your job?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, electronics tends to be in quite a lot of the props and things that we make, because these days everything's like lighting up, moving, making noise, and electronics tends to be involved in all of those things. There's still, plenty of sort of costume type props, or just kind of background pieces that are sculptures or something. But I've often got quite a lot to do with the electronics. But anytime that we're quiet and we don't have as much electronics to do, just sort of roam the workshop and see if anyone's got anything else that needs doing that I can kind of involve myself in. And we had like a big old Stratasys printer, 3D printer, that we hadn't been using for ages, and was sort of like gathering dust. And when we had some quiet time a few weeks ago, I was just like, can I play with this? And they were like, yeah, go right ahead. So I sort of like spent a few days just sort of renovating this big old Stratasys dimension printer, and it was just so much fun. Even though I had to have a little box to stand on, because it was so tall that to actually reach the extruder, I had to stand on a little box. But I basically in the workshop I have a special box that I carry around with me, because there's quite a few things that I'm not actually tall enough to use. Which, I was expecting to be mocked much more heavily for. Everyone's quite respectful of my little box, which is nice. But it's even like we have just like a water jet cleaner, like not like a water jet cutter, just power wash to. We've got another 3D printer that prints a sort of soluble support material that's kind of jellyish. And you can kind of peel it off or just blast it off with the water jet. But the water jet cabinet is just high enough up. It's like a little cabinet. It's like one of those. Have you ever seen those kind of those things that simulate what astronauts go through when they're on a spacewalk and they're trying to use things? And they've got you got like a cabinet, and you put your hands into gloves and you use things. It's got box, it's got gloves, and it's got like a sort of viewing window and a little windscreen wiper, so that when the water's going, it will just like a little windscreen wiper to clean it while you're working. But it's on a plinth that's tall enough that I can't actually see in without standing on my little box. So I'll go and 3D print something standing on my little box. Then I'll pick up my little box and carry it over to the other end of the workshop so that I can put it in the water jet and hose it down. So it's not uncommon to just watch me wandering around with my little box.
Fantastic.
Oh, in the mill. I had this mental image of like this big massive machine lathe, and you just sort of balancing on this little apple crate just to pretty much. The mill, the handle, like for the mill. I mean, I don't stand a hope in hell of changing the speed, because that's right at the top of the machine.
I've got all of the pulleys.
Yeah, I can't get anywhere near that. Like, I just have to call for help if I need to like change the speed. It's just whatever speed it's on is the speed I'm cutting at. Like that's just it. But to actually use the machine, I have to stand on a little box so I can reach the handle.
Fantastic.
It's quite tiring. It takes more core strength, because I'm like constantly leaning over and like reaching up in a way that like my colleagues aren't.
Keep you fit.
Yeah.
So I get the other end of
going to the gym.
Yeah.
Saves getting a gym membership.
Yeah, definitely.
Just go use the workshop for a couple of hours. So I just get the other end of that, being the big grizzly lumbering sort of monster that just.
You're the person I'd come to and say, can you please grab me that piece of steel, or will you please change the speed on this drill press for me, because I can't get anywhere near it.
Move heavy things, reach high things.
I'm always determined to try and do as much of it by myself as possible. But the other day we were fitting some electronics in a couple of vehicles, and they were going to be driving around. So to power the electronics we're putting into them, we needed some big batteries. And if this has got to be on a consideration that like I've not made in the past with the things that I've created, usually they're in my house, either plugged into an outlet, or the battery only needs to last for long enough for me to take a quick video for YouTube. And like powering things isn't as much of a concern. But now working on stuff that has to sit on a film set for like a 12-hour day, and it's a real interruption if somebody has to stop, charge it, change the batteries, do something like that. You know, that's a really big part of what we have to decide when we're designing props and systems.
I'm guessing things like battery isolators as well, and kind of having sort of safety
absolutely
for when it's being transported.
And we had these giant batteries that were going in the back in the boot of this vehicle, and like they're kind of like, you know, I don't know, this size, they're not that big, so I was kind of like, yeah, it's fine, I can heft it out at the back of the, you know, the vehicle, and you know, make a little board, because I was making a board basically for the batteries and the electronics to sit on, that would keep them from sliding around in the boot. And so I went to pick them up to measure them up and to make this board. They weigh about 30 kilos each. I went to try and like lift 2 of these out of the back, like leaning into this boot. There was no way. Like it felt like they'd been like welded to the bottom of the boot. Like I thought it was a joke.
Just put more gravity in them. That was all it was.
Yeah.
Earth's
magnetic field locally, just, you know.
So, 3 orders of magnitude out.
It was a couple of orders of magnitude more than it ought to have been. So
proving that your experiment was in fact correct at the time that you did it.
It was, yeah. But yeah, I just couldn't move him, and it was quite embarrassing to just sort of like go over and ask my boss if he'd mind lifting these batteries out of the boot for me.
Can you lift the heavy things, please?
Yeah.
I'd imagine you get the inverse of that though all the time, because especially with like, you know, routing electronics and stuff through, you know, already built vehicles and things. I know, like, even just changing a headlight bulb the other day, and even just trying to like fit holes into places and things like that. It's that sort of thing of like, I need small dexterous hands, please.
Yeah. At one point,
you probably get the same.
I was literally up to my shoulder inside the door of this vehicle, like trying to catch a cable that somebody was like feeding in the other side, like through the bodywork, because we'd like, you know, redone the interior of it. We're trying to like lay the cables as, you know, as neatly inside as possible. I was literally up to my shoulder inside this vehicle, and the worst part was I grabbed the cable and I was like about to pull it through, and my engagement ring like got stuck on something internal the bodywork, and I was like, I've only been here for like a month and someone's gonna have to cut me out of a vehicle. I'm like entirely stuck up to like my shoulder in this car. Like what am I gonna do? I mean, I wiggled my hands and I managed to get free, but there was just this awful moment that I thought, like, this is it. Like, this is gonna be my legacy at this company. Like I've been here for weeks, and somebody's gonna have to like get an angle grinder and like, you know, the jaws of life and like pry me from this vehicle.
You just cut at the shoulder, you should be fine.
Yeah.
Zip tie first. Yeah.
And that's going to be like some film trivia when it actually makes it to set, and like there's just like a severed human limb just like put inside the door that nobody knows about. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm sure we've all been there with kind of I've sort of certainly been in a situation with kind of arms stuck in vehicle, and you're kind of thinking, I need another inch, and how much damage am I prepared to do to myself in order to get that extra inch further in? Or kind of you grab it and you think, right, I've grabbed it, but now my hand, instead of being flat, is now this wider thing.
It's the monkeys in the jar, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not gonna come out.
Yeah. So you want to like just kind of like try and catch it in 2 fingers like that, and then yeah.
But then you can't grab it. So then you try and grab it, and you pull. If I can just pull it a bit further, get a bit of movement first, but then I'll get a bit further. Then I'll have to kind of retract a little bit, kind of make my hand narrow again. fun and games.
I mean, it could be worse because at least that's a maker problem and not a vet problem. You know, I'd rather be shoulder deep in some kind of weird funky machine than some biological.
Something bovine.
Yeah.
With one of those super long gloves on. Yeah.
I wonder how often they get stuck in that situation. Yeah. I don't think I want to think about that. I think we should have another question and move on. Really.
Yeah. I'm
sorry I asked it.
Yeah. I mean.
If anyone in the chat knows, don't tell us.
I mean, either way, take your engagement ring off.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, that's happened before. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah. Oh, I did. Where's my ring gone? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, having this lovely workshop to work in, at kind of work, do you kind of now sort of obviously you kind of at home you don't have a big fancy workshop. Like you say, you're working in kind of your dining table or in your bedroom. Yeah, has it given you now maybe a desire to at some point have your own workshop?
Oh, for sure. I wanted my own workshop before I got to work at this one. But I mean, the thing it's given me is some good tips on space saving and what things are essential. Because getting to use lots of tools and equipment and things at work, you kind of go oh, I like that soldering station. I don't like that soldering station. That overhead lamp is really good. That one, not so much. So just by getting to try out a whole bunch of things without the commitment of having bought one yourself for your own space, that's been really handy because I haven't sort of renovated my sort of spare bedroom makerspace for a while. And now I've got a whole wish list of it's really good if you can have this kind of thing in this kind of an orientation and you want a shelf just here. So I've got a much better idea of what I want to do in my own space as a result.
I know when I've been in similar situations and you've got your own one that was a little special or something like that. It's I've got the thing for 20 quid that it's been great. I've been using it for years, and then you go and use a proper professional one that's 10, 20 times the price, and you go, now I see why that one's a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'll just bin all my ones.
But yeah, I mean, it's sort of, you also find some surprising budget options as well. Because we've got a ton of soldering irons and soldering stations at work. It's just a thing that's sort of accumulated in the workshop. And the one that I sort of immediately claimed for myself that was going spare, and I stuck it on my bench and claimed it as my own, was a really quite expensive Ursa RDS 80 or something station that's cost a few hundred or something, and even the replacement tips are 20 quid a piece. And I was oh, this is a fancy soldering iron, this is going to make soldering so easy. I really enjoy this. It's such an upgrade from my cheapest that Maplins do iron. And then I'd used it for a while and I was it's fine, it's quite good. My colleague has just one of the RS Pro stations, every bit as good, sometimes even a bit better. It cost 40 quid. They're really I really rate them. They're really good. There are definitely some things that when you have the proper this costs loads of money version, there comes a point where spending extra money, I'm sure somebody that does that every single day of their lives and demands the ultimate best performance out of it would notice the difference. But I guess it's the 80-20 rule. I only need the thing to be 80% good because I'm not, I do lots of different things. I don't just specialize in the one thing. So I don't need the ultra professional version of that thing. I just need it to be quite good. And so I notice the difference between the absolute bottom tier, cheapest one you can get and a middle of the range one. But I might not appreciate everything that a completely professional, expensive one can offer.
Well, that top 20% is diminishing returns anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why it is what it is. I mean, the soldering iron that I use most is it's 5 quid, little USB job.
Yeah.
I use that more than, I mean, again, my mid-range one, but my RS Pro or whichever model it is. But again, 40, 50 quid solder station. And
I've got a non-branded Amazon job over there that's just Perfect.
Yeah,
roughly the right temperature, and
I've got 3 soldering irons, and I think all 3 of my soldering irons are the same age as you guys. So I'm staying out of this conversation.
So they're very young.
Yes, they're surprisingly young.
I
mean,
I've literally I have soldered before with just heating up a bit of metal in a fire and then stabbing it to the thing that needs soldering. It's like, at the end of the day, it's just getting metal hot. Is what soldering is. And it's like you can do that with increasing precision, which is great, but it's still kind of possible to do it like caveman style.
I'm pretty sure I have a soldering iron. Yeah, it's 16 inches long. Yes, 14, 16 inches long, wooden handle on one end, and a great big lump of. I'm not sure what it would be, but yeah, it's kind of copper or sort of brass on the other end, which you would for lead work.
I mean, we also I put some like battery connectors on some really, really thick gauge wire, and they're basically just like cups that you fill with solder and then jam the wire in.
Yeah, I've got.
And for that, you just get a blowtorch, make the thing really hot, and then just like stab solder into it until you got a little cup of like bubbling solder, and then stand as far back as you possibly can while you jam the wire in.
Yep.
It's great fun. Favorite kind of soldering.
So here's the question: then because we've all been in a school environment with PVA glue and like peeling the glue off your hands, but we've all soldered and had the splashes of solder on the workbench, and done that kind of like where you poke it with your nail so then it goes.
Yeah.
And like, is that better? Is that more satisfying than peeling the PVA glue off though?
If you keep it afterwards, I basically always have like way too much solder on my iron, so I'm constantly like just flicking beads of solder into my sponge. So basically, like weekly, I take my sponge off and just pour all of the like tiny beads of solder into little pots, and I'm making a little collection. I think it's a great art project. Like at the end of the year, I'm going to have like this massive like bowl of like just balls of solder. But like when you said about peeling the PVA glue like off your hands, I thought you were going somewhere else with that question, because this is just for the people who are viewing. But like, you know, there we go, work-related injury right there. That wasn't solder actually. I just like I'm just very clumsy, and I do that thing where when you're soldering, instead of putting the iron back in the stand, you think it'll only take you 2 seconds to rearrange the components and like rearrange your bench or do whatever it is that you need to do to get a better angle on it before you try again. And really, you should just park the iron and do whatever you need to with 2 hands. But instead, I'm like holding this like 360-degree like hot thing in one hand, not paying attention to it, leaning and doing something else. So I quite often just sort of stab myself with the iron. Or my other favorite thing to do is like setting my hair on fire a little bit. Not on fire, just like singeing it. But
it's a slight trim.
Yeah. Do you find you do that ever with your beard? Because Jamie, your beard's quite long. Yeah, I can imagine that kind of being a little bit in the vicinity when you're soldering.
I'm definitely, well, not just soldering, but any power tools in general.
Yeah.
Because I quite often I like to get sort of closer to the thing. So I've caught myself a few times with like a drill. And the beard's getting dangerously close.
Yeah.
And then I think I just stuff it into the t-shirt and then
nice. Yeah. Like stuff like leaning over belt sanders and stuff like that.
Yeah. Anything that's big and spinny machinery type stuff, I'm very
you gotta be careful.
Aware. But just catching myself even just with drills and things, or trying to clean out 3D prints or something where and you're close, and then you're thinking that might just pull 1 or 2 there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
At least if it's like with a hand drill, you'd have the sense to like let go of the trigger once you sort of like manage to entangle yourself. But some of the big machines, like when you forget where the e-stop is, or well, you said you think in a way there that makes me question You've experienced this, haven't you?
You
have stories.
I've definitely had moments where I've not stopped the tool as quickly as I should have done.
Yeah.
When you try, or you know,
I suppose the panic. You just don't. Oh, what's happening?
Yeah,
my chin is hurting for some reason. I wonder what the. Yeah.
Yeah, you move the thing away rather than release the trigger. You know?
Yeah. It's a wonder you've still got that lovely, wonderful, luscious, long beard.
It has got a bit shorter than it has been. It has been a bit bigger.
See, my beard's generally short enough that that's not a danger. But I have had this situation where many times where I've had to kind of pick bits of wood chip or metal chip out of it because something's kind of just displaying bits of.
There's the really big problem with doing that though is it gets in with all the bits of food as well. So then you just ruin your snacks for later.
Yeah. Well, I found that like coming home after like I haven't done a ton of machining, but I've dabbled when we've been quiet on the electronics front. So if I've been putting some holes in some metal, you come home and it blows my mind. Where does all of that swarf hide?
Yeah.
So come home and I'm like getting changed in the bathroom.
And things.
Yeah, and you just kind of like shake yourself down, and it's just like. It sounds like rain. Like you could just hear bits of it like dropping on the tiles, and I don't know where it's all come from.
I mean, not to swing this back around to earlier conversations, but maybe you need something that's orders of magnitude above the Earth's magnetic field. Pull all that stuff out for you.
Yeah. That's
like
just like you just kind of walk through it as you come home, and it just like attracts all the swarf off you. Yeah. That's great, yeah. Or at the very least, you could like just a kind of closet like that you could just hang up your clothes in afterwards.
Well, see, like some motorbike factories and automotive places and stuff. They have like blower chambers, kind of like a airlock. I completely forgot a noun. But where you walk in and basically stand on like Marilyn Monroe style on a big massive
on a grating and then
it just kind of blows all the crap and swarf and bits and dust and everything. So like before you go in there and then when you come back out as well, just kind of
we've got airlines like throughout the workshop with like a couple of
you do the olds
and you just
put yourself down
yeah.
Well,
or just come up behind someone when they're working and just
down the butt crack if they
Tip from Kiri's is when he was working in a steel fab factory, he used to put a magnet in his washing machine to gather the metal shards to stop them clogging the machine up.
That is a good tip.
Yeah.
He's a clever man, that man.
Which obviously is fine if you're working in a steel fab factory, but not if you're working in an aluminium fab place.
Yeah.
True. See, there you
I suppose you could. You have those like mesh bags that you can put your laundry in when you put it in the washing machine. And if the mesh is like fine enough, well, to be honest, I think the store would probably just cut it open, wouldn't it?
Or stay inside with the clothes. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, but at least it doesn't get in the washing machine and like break your washing machine. Because once you can hang all your washing up on a line and like beat it to get all the swarf off afterwards. Like you do with rugs, we
use that. We use a bag for when we use our clean our dog blankets. So our dog basically sleeps on the settee, so we kind of put blankets down to sort of protect it, and every now and again, obviously take them off and wash it because dog hair is just going to clog the machine up. So we put them in the bag, but you end up with these sort of clods of dog hair inside the bag.
Yeah,
it's like okay, well the dirt's gone because that's dissolved, but it's
still hairy.
Scrape all the hair off. Yeah.
Nice.
We've been chatting for over a couple of hours now, but let's start thinking about one of the things we often ask our guests is what's been grabbing their attention. So it can be anything. We tend to some podcasts like to talk about the video of the week or the one thing that's sort of that grabbed attention. For us, it's kind of there's something you've been working on, something you're working towards that you've been sort of thinking about, whether it's something you've watched or a book. It can be more than one thing. It doesn't have to be one thing. So what's been grabbing your attention lately?
Well, at the minute, in the middle of wedding planning. So that's kind of all-consuming, multifaceted thing that's grabbing my attention a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Yeah, remember that.
And of course, like, there's all of the standard actual wedding planning of like having to actually have a place and a time and the things. But then there's also all the projects that I want to build for it. Because, you know, you can't be like a maker and a special effects technician and not bring some of that to your wedding. So I've got like a long list of projects, but we're just going to have to see how many of them. I've got to prioritize and see how many of them I can manage to get through.
Exploding cake?
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
Laser knife for cutting the cake.
Oh, that's a great idea. I made a robot for New Scientist that was like a cake cutting robot for like circular cakes. It was just a really like dangerous machine with like a knife on it. And like a turntable. Yeah. And it was just, you entered how many people you were sharing the cake with, and it would work out the angle it needed to rotate to
that's amazing.
Dissect this cake. The correct
big
number
machinists
of
everywhere
pieces.
kicking themselves now as well.
Yeah.
Divided.
So do you think you could borrow the cooker for?
Oh, that would
wedding?
be good, wouldn't it? Yeah. That would be perfect.
And then you could
just have it cutting and serving cake.
Yeah,
that would be
just
ideal.
stay at the top. You could just stay at the top table, press something on the iPad.
Yeah.
And they could serve out the cake.
And it would just smack someone in the back of the head with a slice of cake. Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't even need to leave the thing if you just get it, because it can move pretty quick. So maybe you could just get it to throw the cake.
Even
on
better.
The
Cake catapult.
Yeah. Calculate the trajectory to land like in front of them and not splash them with cream or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like that's, I might need some help with the physics on that.
Yeah,
we need to do some calculations.
Kinematics, a bit of kinematics. Yeah, I might need to swat up on. Yeah, I think it's probably a bit more than just standard Suvat type equations. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we need to know, like, I need to pick the cake first so we can work out the viscosity of the frosting. And
yeah, of course.
We've got some fluid dynamics to consider there as well.
And obviously the densities as well. You've got to make sure that it's, there's a lot of play there.
What about the aerodynamics of cake?
Yeah.
Do you go for the standard wedge? Do you get it to?
Well, a lot of wedding cakes often get cut into kind of
square shapes, don't they?
Rectangle, rectangles, rectangular cuboids.
Much less aerodynamic.
Yeah. Quite boring, but easy to do for the caterers generally. Yeah. But Joe's just suggested that we need to be careful the algorithm doesn't try to figure out how many cakes it can serve to the suitably divided guest.
Yeah, make sure you're putting your variables in the correct order there.
Yeah,
you're dividing the cake, not the guests. How many cakes can this guest serve?
Yeah, especially kind of a large kind of sort of sword type wedding knife on the end.
Oh
of
man! Well, we're hoping.
Robot.
Yeah, we're hoping to have some swords at our wedding because Joe's a big fan of swords, and we've got a couple of beautiful swords. It's got a very nice Scottish basket hilt sword that we were hoping we would be able to use for cake cutting, but I really don't know, like, whose permission, if anyone's, I need to have to cut my wedding cake with the sword.
Well, for ceremonial purposes, you might be all right. But what I can say, because my dad has Anduril, Aragorn's sword from Lord of the Rings, and it's the live edge one as well.
Yeah,
and he used that to cut his wedding cake.
Aha.
Marzipan is the enemy of the sword when it comes to cutting the cake.
Ooh.
So if you're
I would
planning
not
on
have thought of that. Yeah.
It provides more resistance than the sword is expecting to do, so it pushes and squashes the sponge more.
Yeah.
You need more of a in the top stabby motion to get the first cut down.
Or you just need to
really swing.
Go at speed. I suppose that makes it a bit
6
less
meters
romantic.
per second for the kuka, so
yeah, that'd be easy.
Yeah, marzipan is tricky to cut. Yeah, I do like marzipan. I tend to kind of if we cook with it, I tend to eat half of it.
Yeah, we'll go for like the cream cheese or something if we're planning on cutting it with a sword, or maybe just one tier without marzipan.
Yeah,
it's
it's
sword
ceremonial
purposes. Yeah.
Just for the
Yeah.
for the theatrics. Couple
Or
of spokes at the bottom, just
have
in
a
case.
pre-cut. Use a wire or something to kind of pre-cut a slice that isn't visible from anywhere else, so the marzipan is already dealt with.
That is a really good idea, but at the same time, like it just really feels like if you're cheating because your sword can't cut a cake.
Yeah,
your sword's not good enough.
Yeah.
So, or can you make the cake a sort of consistency of sort of ballistic gel or something like that? In order to
Yeah,
human body.
Yeah. This oddly gelatinous cake that the guests are all going to hate, but it cuts beautifully with a sword. We'll have these beautiful pieces of inedible mush. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we're going pretty non-traditional with most aspects of our wedding, so why not the gelatinous cake?
As you kind of go for a red velvet, so you kind of got that red, and maybe make it a real bright red velvet, so it looks like blood-like.
Oh, that might be a step too far. That sounds traumatizing.
Great Aunt Mabel in the back kind of has a wobbly.
Yeah.
I suppose every good wedding story starts with like a "hold my beer" or a "hey kids, watch this." Or
I think our wedding's going to have a few of those because the place we're getting married, which we were just discussing earlier, weren't we, Andy? Because you've been there.
Yeah.
You've visited.
Long time ago. Yeah.
It's a science discovery centre called Technoquest, and it is going to be the best place to get married. There is going to be so much to do.
Cardiff Bay.
Cardiff Bay.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Close to Torchwood HQ.
Yes. Yeah. And they have an earthquake simulator, and they have a slide.
Perfect for a gelatinous cake to be.
Yes. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, put the cake on the earthquake simulator. Or just watch guests trying to eat, pick up and eat their slice of cake on the earthquake simulator. That's what they have to do in order to, get their dessert.
Fantastic.
They must have a kind of a display, a machine or something that you could kind of put the cake under and press a button and kind of
have something happen. Yeah.
Or throw the cake through like a once you've done your ceremonial cut, the cake gets loaded onto a ballista, which then throws it through one of those cutters that they use for like kind of chips.
Oh yes,
it's cake pieces size.
Yeah,
and then kind of
launched it through like a cake diffraction grating almost.
I mean, if we're going to this extreme, you could then combine the cake eating set with the photographs and just line all the guests up. And just do the photograph before, then hit launch, and then do a mid splatter snap.
That sounds amazing. And then you'll have like if you just put a screen behind them, you'd have a beautiful piece of artwork that's just like the shadow of the guests in cake. I like this plan.
There was that a few years ago. There was a band that did their music video was a Rube Goldberg machine. And it starts out the ball rolling down, goes all the way around, and I think several times during the event, the band, I think 3 or 4 of them, were stood in front of kind of a screen as sort of they were splattered with paint, leaving behind this kind of view.
Ah, that's kind of another
it was viral for a while.
Was it OK Go? Because it sounds like the kind of it sounds like the kind of thing they do, because they've had a few really
that's
amazing music videos. I don't think I've seen that one specifically, but they're the treadmill dance. They had like the 0G,
I'm glad you got that, Hannah, because that was
on the tip of your tongue there. It
was there, but it didn't come out.
Because that went viral, didn't it? I'll hunt down a link for a YouTube video and pop it into the show notes.
Well, if you want to see another excellent Rube Goldberg device, me and my friend Tim were on a little like online challenge. I think it was for, weirdly enough, it was for those great creators of maker content, Lad Bible.
Of course,
and
why not?
But they had. Is it Joseph's Machines? The channel, he's like been famous for making increasingly zany Rube Goldberg devices. And they did like a mini series where they'd get 2 teams in to create a Rube Goldberg device that had to do a specific thing, and like, you know, see which one of the teams made the better and more fun Rube Goldberg device. And I went on this with my friend Tim, and our brief was we had to feed a fish. So we had this like fish bowl in the center between our two tables, and then they had like a table at the back that had like all kinds of different things, like, you know, scraps of wood, bouncy balls, paper clips, like just tons of random objects. And we were allowed to bring like a small handful of things like from home as well. And we had like a few hours to just build our contraption that you had to just launch it somehow, and then it would go through the whole thing and then feed the fish at the end. And I was so proud of the ridiculous like contraption that we came up with, that started with pouring fish food into a martini glass, which like activated the seesaw, because I mean, like, this is a classy device. And we had like some dominoes made out of like shark highlighters, and like we had a ball chain that like did the sort of jumping out of the cup trick, the mold effect, exactly. Yeah. And we had a whole bunch of stuff. We had the thing that we nicknamed the fish skateboard, that was just like a plank of wood with some wheels on, and then like a decorative like wire fish on it that like rolled across the table at one point, and had like this giant counterweight that like pulled it across. And the sort of finishing move was we had like a balloon full of fish food that was over the fish bowl. We had these two arms on hinges that had blades on that came round, and popped this balloon that were counterweighted. I think it was like a bottle of ketchup or something was like the counterweight for that. It was mad. I'm trying to dig out the video. We can pop a link to that.
Oh yes, please.
Well.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
so much fun. Yeah,
reminds me of before. I think it's before. I mean, Rube Goldberg dates back quite a long time, but obviously it's become popular in the last few years, and of course, a lot of people will know kind of Heath Robertson type things. And did you when you were in school? Did you have the Physics for You books?
I don't remember.
There's a textbook called Physics for You by a guy called Keith Johnson.
Yeah.
And hang on. Yes.
I've set him off.
Here's my copy.
I've still got physics books.
Here's what I prepared earlier.
I love this.
And Physics for You has.
Oh wow! I don't recognise this, but this looks excellent.
Essentially, what's called a Rube Goldberg machine, but it's a Heath Robinson, and it's all kind of sort of science stuff. So it starts with the paperboy sticking a paper through the front door, and it wakes up the professor and kind of sets off, gives him a shower, gets him dressed.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's brilliant.
For a physics teacher, it's kind of a great kind of sort of reminder. But every time you kind of hand out these sets of books in class, the kids are just there, kind of trying to work out what's going on rather than paying attention to what you're doing. But there was back in the early '80s, there was a program called The Great Egg Race.
Did they have
Professor Heinz Wulff? 1980s, not the 1880s. So my later 80s. Which was kind of a very similar sort of thing. And there was another TV program in the mid-80s called Beat That Einstein, which kind of had similar sort of thing where a group of teams had to kind of solve a problem. So one of the Beat That Einstein ones, they had to play, it wasn't quite Rube Goldberg style, but it was, there's a piano on an island. You've got to play it. You're not on the island. Things like that. And they could send one person over in a boat for kind of before they could play it, so they could set something up on the island. So building solenoids to kind of go over the keys, and then kind of having cables going all the way back.
Yeah,
cool.
And we don't see much of that type of TV anymore.
Yeah,
so I think it's a bit of a shame because I mean, inspired people. I was inspired by stuff like that, and I think more people would be.
So basically, the question now is, which TV station are we pitching to?
Oh, that's a good thought. I guess nowadays
YouTube or IGTV.
We could. But I think like with the selection of guests that you've got on Maker's Waffle, make a pretty formidable first season.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that would be really cool.
How can we?
And because, of course, you were mentioning earlier the Kids Invent Stuff recent video, because Ali guest starred in that, and it was a kind of one-day build challenge. If anyone hasn't seen it,
well, I mean,
they were making finger cutlery, but in like 3 different ways. I
tell you what I'm kind of wondering is maybe have a word with Nick Zametti and see whether there could be almost like a
Maker Central,
Great Egg Race, get some makers. Probably need a couple of hours though, wouldn't you? You need a good couple of hours to sort of make something worthwhile.
Could be well, I was going to say it could be a Saturday after the show kind of thing, but we'd all be down at the Hilton, wouldn't we? Or not the Hilton, but wherever is. But I mean, we've got two teams already set up, and we've just got to pick our guests.
Ooh, yeah. I'm just gonna make a little note a second, and just get onto my email first. Just quickly email a few people.
While you're making your notes, what else has been grabbing your attention?
Me?
What's been grabbing your attention?
Anything else for Hannah? First of all,
oh yeah.
I mean, the wedding planning. Presumably, that's it. I guess
the wedding planning is pretty all-consuming at the minute. So that is all of my attention, and it will be until about May next year. So.
But hopefully, you mentioned before we started chatting online, you mentioned that maybe some of it might get recorded for video purposes, or because
I'm hoping to make some videos out of the projects. Yeah, the projects that I'm building, because I've already made and sent out my save the dates. I think I sort of showed a bit of a sneak preview when I was on Me to Maker on Billie's channel, but. And I think I teased that saying the video will be coming soon. And that was, I don't know how many months ago, because I am a disaster of organisation. But I promised myself and other people that it will be coming at some point in the not too distant future, which involved a lot of 3D printing and hours of sanding and sending out some really suspicious mail to about like 60 households or something. So that's going to make an interesting video.
It's got batteries and wires inside as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Double A. Do we do this for like watch battery as well? Like, oh no, not that. It's not.
Well, it's like a 2032 and then like an LR44 maybe, or
yes, yeah.
It's going to be the the maker equivalent of Toki Pono.
Yeah. Just point at something and be like,
plug. Double A.
Yeah. Well, that'd be really useful if you need something and you just like wave someone down and be like, and they'll know exactly what to bring you. Yeah.
Well, there we go. We've started a trend. We'll just have to
make a semaphore.
Well, there could be a variation on kind of a big central challenge, a team challenge where you've got 2 teams separated, or your team is separated, and they can only communicate by make a semaphore. On how to build something. So somebody's got the plans and somebody's got the bits, but you need the plans to do it. So there's kind of what
given the makers we know, they very, very rapidly devolved to universal sign language and dodgy hand signals.
And not bothering to wait for the instructions and just bang it all together. Yeah.
And I mean, possibly some amount of swearing and rude hand gestures.
Lots of it, I would say. Yeah.
Inevitable.
And just everything covered in hot glue and stuck in the wrong places.
Hot glue solves most problems.
Absolutely. Big advocate for hot glue.
Totally. I mean, super strong stuff. Strong. But people, I don't think people realise how strong hot glue can be and how strong the bonds can be.
Can be, yeah.
But not as strong as this glue that we have in work. That I literally don't know what the chemical composition is. That there are people in work that do know, and it is marked as such somewhere. But what it's just colloquially referred to as is death glue. Just called death glue. And it can glue anything to anything. And you sort of mix it up. And apparently it's like really quite bad for you, but it does smell really nice. And you can literally glue metal with it and things.
Wow.
Ooh,
And
sounds
it's
interesting.
exceptionally strong. Yeah, and it's just a sort of like very good emergency solution in sort of prop making and other situations as well. But like I had never heard of death glue before I went to the special effects company, but now I just like hear people just offhand just being like, "Oh, just death glue it."
Definitely going to need to find out what that is.
I was going to say, I'd like to know.
I wonder
I'd like to know
if you Google
the
it,
proper name. Yeah.
Hannah calls it death glue.
Yeah.
Death glue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because pink grip was that for me when I'd been using like mastic adhesives and stuff like that for years and things, and then my friend went, no, we're doing this properly. You need pink grip.
Yeah.
What the hell's pink grip? And he just brought this tube of like fluorescent pink mastic adhesive.
Yeah.
And that is, when you used to have the TV adverts where you'd, glue someone with no more nails to the wall on a chair.
Yeah,
and then, you can actually do that with pink grip, and they'll go on the wall and stay on the wall. It's horrific.
Well, there's the other Evo Stick one that it sticks like S asterisk 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 asterisk. Just to say
that's what it's called, isn't it? That's
yeah.
And that's we've got the gable of our house. We're semi-detached house, and the gable has Kent peg tiles. I mean, one of the hurricanes, big storms for the last, I think it was
British
I want to say last year, but it's probably
yeah.
I mean, we're talking kind of 50+ mile-an-hour winds. I think it was one of the 80-mile-an-hour wind storms from I think 2019. Some of them got dislodged, and we were kind of sitting at funny angles and slightly broken, but not broken enough to fall down. And at the kind of edge, the eaves edge, they were actually sort of cemented in place. And at the end, the only way I could get some of them to actually sort of stay lined up was to use that sticks-like. And it does the job. I tried a few other things and had to kind of do the job a second time, but in the end, I kind of got some of that stuff because it's supposed to stick in the wet. When it's wet. And it really works.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Kieran says that's a light breeze. He still hasn't found his trampoline. But Jamie, you asked me what was grabbing my attention.
I did.
You did ask me that.
We did go on a slight tangent, but that is what we're prone to do.
The name of the show.
Yeah. I mean, it's mathematical. Yeah. We like tangents. A few things.
I enjoyed that much more than I should have. That was a great joke.
A few things grabbed my attention. I was hoping to do more gardening and fence replacement. For those who've listened to the last couple of weeks, I've been slowly trying to replace some broken fence panels. I'm still recovering from the last lot of fence replacement panels. But this afternoon, I kind of had to catch up with the family ironing. I do a lot of the kind of housework. But the advantage of ironing is that I get to watch YouTube while I do it, because I can then just stand at my computer, catching up with some YouTube which I hadn't been able to do before. So a couple of things caught my attention kind of on that. Laura Camp's video today was very good. It was all about using kind of seatbelt connectors to attach tools for quick release. So,
wow.
So kind of putting the plastic, the socket on kind of the wall, and then she welded the clip to a hammer, for example.
Oh, fantastic!
She did some with a mug and things. But one of the things I quite enjoy about some of Laura's videos is she kind of explains her creative process. She shows the things that aren't quite working, and then she shows how she sort of solves it.
It's so valuable.
It's and I like videos like that. Some of Adam Savage's videos where he's kind of, look, this went wrong. This is how I've solved it. This is how I've.
You often learn more from that, don't you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've seen a video where everything goes perfectly smooth, and it's like, well, I may as well just watch the start, watch the end, but if you actually want to learn how to sort of solve problems or create, then watching the videos where people are kind of actually sort of showing things going wrong. And how they solve that, I think much more useful. So that was good. That came out today. Also caught up with Kids Invent Stuff's latest one, which
Fantastic,
is the finger forks.
I love that video.
And Ali's Geeky Fay Art, her version of it as well, which again was quite interesting because she took a slightly different tack. Showed less of the build because Kids Invent Stuff had the build video, but took some of the process behind it.
Yeah, the behind the scenes
documentary behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun. I imagine that was probably a crazy day because Ruth and Shawn try and get their builds done in one day, which often turn into very long days.
Yeah,
and then trying to sort of shoot.
And having like Ali coming in as well.
Video.
Having 3 people in a workshop instead of 2 that are used to sharing space. It's an extra kind of factor in
body in there.
Everyone trying to do their own thing.
In public, trying to eat in public using
that was amazing.
That section of the video is hilarious.
The race with the cake as well at the end.
And I loved how they all had different strategies for that. It was like, do you go for the small bits, or do you just try and like use all of the cutlery like a shovel and just like put the whole thing? Because I think ultimately, some of them were limited by the rate at which they could chew rather than the rate at which the cutlery was working.
See, I think Ruth was maybe a slightly unfair advantage of being the parent of a very young child. Because when you're a parent of a very young child, you learn to eat quickly. And often with one hand, so you're often sort of disadvantaged in your sort of eating. So she had a bit of
sneaking cake as well without the child noticing.
Yes.
So specifically
maybe they should have swapped their finger cutlery.
Use each
other's. They should have used each other's.
But they were kind of custom fitted, though, weren't they?
Yeah, true.
And the other thing, the last thing that caught my attention, I was playing Dad's Taxi this morning, taking my kids out. And while they were kind of doing their thing, I kind of had to visit Tesco's to get a couple of bits. Actually, I wasn't planning on mentioning Tesco's, but it was Tesco's. And I was
other supermarkets are available.
Yeah, other supermarkets are available. And hopefully, I was horrified by the percentage of people not wearing masks or socially distancing and stuff like that. It was really quite horrific.
But they've switched the pandemic off, Andy.
Well, it's gone, hasn't it? It's all disappeared. Yeah, our illustrious clown of a leader has said that. Yeah, it's all safe now.
We're veering dangerously close to alienating the right wing here, Andy.
I don't give a 2 hoots. If anybody's really right wing, please don't watch. Not interested in your viewing. But then I still had some time to get out. I was fed up with Tesco's, especially when I had to use the only petrol pump I could get. Because I had to get some petrol. Was the one that didn't have the pay at the pump, so that's kind of like double annoying. So I went to Hobbycraft, and I picked up a couple of sketchbooks for my daily sketching because I think I'm on my. I've got one left, but that's set up for Inked October, so I want one for after that. And it confirmed to me that generally makers are really decent people because 95% of the people, obviously slightly lower numbers. Hobbycraft doesn't get the same sort of numbers as you get in sort of Tesco's, but 95% of the people in Hobbycraft were wearing masks and keeping their distance. They saw you you're in a bit of an aisle, they would kind of wait or go round. So it's just like makers are nice people.
We'll have to look out for that.
That was my conclusion from my visit to Hobbycraft today. So I think
I think now that Maplin's is gone, there are like fewer places that we go to like buy things, makery things in real life.
Definitely.
I kind of miss that.
I have a Maplin rant actually for the after show. So remind me about that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this.
This
is my kind of drama.
Yeah. I think losing Maplin's was a real shame because there isn't. There's DIY stores. Yeah, you got your B&Qs and your Wicks and places like that, but it's not quite the same, is it? It's yeah. Hey, Jamie, what's been grabbing your attention?
Well, thanks to Tom Scott and his recent video on his second channel, I found Liv Boeree who is pretty awesome from what I've seen so far. She was on Tom's video as one of the guests playing a game in a pub with him, and he'd showed the channels for the 3 guests, and went on to Libs, and the first video that was, like the primer video when you go to the page, was about meta things, and it was just really fun, really engaging. So I was like, oh, that's cool, let's have a look at what the video she's got, and then spotted a video about Dyson spheres, so I was like, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So loads of really, really interesting, cool topics. So I'm absolutely going to be checking her out a bit more. The other thing was went to listen to Fools of Tools this week. The 3 hosts sounded completely different. One of them sounded like a Norwegian dude. One of them sounded French, and the other one sounded German. Completely threw me off. Turns out they got guest hosts on. But yeah, no, it's friends of ours, Rasmus, Jan, and Roadsmith, who have started up their new podcast called 2/3 Focused. So I'm going to be checking that out as well.
Which is currently on SoundCloud and I believe iTunes
has made its way
or Apple
to
Podcasts.
iTunes.
But I don't think it's yet populating onto other podcast providers.
No,
we'll
have the link to the SoundCloud one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are lovely blokes.
They are. Yeah, we won't say that publicly. We don't want him to get too much of himself. But yeah, that should be. I've listened to the first one, as well as the Fools of Tools episode, and I think it's going to be. I think for us, because we know them, I think it's definitely a thing. But I think it's going to be one of those podcasts that people will get to know them, and will settle into it. I think because we already know them, you and I, Jamie, we kind of probably will settle in quicker. But I think maybe others will need to get to know them a little bit more. But the Redsmith is a very wise man. Rasmus is a very young.
He's a very wise child.
So that
sounds good.
A pleasant surprise that they were releasing a podcast.
They were very naughty and they kept it very well hidden, and then suddenly appeared unannounced on Fools of Tools, and then went, oh, by the way, we've just launched our podcast that we've been keeping secret.
Wow.
3 episodes gone live. So yeah, took everyone off guard. Yeah, they're lovely guys. And I hope they do well, because so many people starting podcasts nowadays.
Well, it's the thing to do. I mean, we're obviously we're setting a trend. Yeah.
I mean, some of them better than others, but
exactly.
Well, I think it was one of the things to do, wasn't it? It was one of 2020. Learn to make sourdough bread and create a podcast. I mean, that was the kind of thing to do, wasn't it?
Well, we can't all sit round a table in a. Well, I suppose technically we can all now sit around a table in a pub, but it's a bit of a trek just for a few hours of chatting on a Sunday night. So.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, not too bad for me to pop up to London. I can get the fast train up to London. I could be there in 45 minutes, I think, including travel from here to the station.
Showing off.
Yeah, it's then the kind of it's all the careering around London from the tube and various stations like that. But
well, there's the concept of the London hour that I've come up with. That any 2 places in London are approximately an hour apart. No matter what distance they are.
However far.
Yeah, because if they're opposite sides of London, there will be a fast train that will go directly between them. But because they're quite far apart, it will take an hour. If 2 things are really close together, all of the transport in London goes in and out of the centre on spokes. It doesn't go kind of around the perimeter.
Of course,
So if you've got 2 places that are close on the perimeter, it will still take an hour to get there because you have to go in and out again to manage to get there by public transport.
I like that.
The London hour is it's approximately an hour to get between any 2 points in London.
That's very, very cool.
That's from. I'm gonna have to dig into my brain. That reminds me. There's something.
I want to go to a pub in Parsons Green. It's an hour. But I want to go all the way to Tottenham Court Road. It's an hour.
Isn't it something like 36 minutes? If you were to call through the planet, it would take you 36 minutes to get to anywhere.
Oh right, yeah. That sounds.
Yeah,
there's
something
yeah.
physicsy hitting my head.
Yeah.
Kind of constant time between two things.
Mm.
It might be an optics thing. It'll probably arrive in my head at about 5:30 in the morning.
We're all looking forward to the messages.
I'll send them immediately, shall I?
Andy's got it. Yeah.
Well, at that point, before we hit the big 3-hour mark, should we start to attempt to try and vaguely wrap everything up?
That would probably be a good idea. Yes. Yeah. Well, on that note, Hannah, where can people find you? That's probably the thing we generally finish with.
Yeah.
Good way
to. Mostly on Twitter and YouTube, and I am Hannah Makes on both of those. Nice and easy to find. Hopefully. Cool. Please come find me.
Yeah, you are.
I suspect you might have already in new subs already. Nice. Yeah.
Yes, I think a couple of people in the chat mentioned that they had found you and subscribed. So,
very happy about that.
Yeah,
thanks.
A few more, and yeah, we look forward to more videos coming out. And
excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, and now live streaming. Now I've had my first live streaming experience. Thank you very much.
It's a good thing to do. Ali, of course, has done some live streaming as
well.
Oh,
they're like the master of live streaming, yeah.
Oh,
I'll be tapping them up for some tips, definitely.
Yeah. Multiple cameras.
Well, to be honest, this new camera that I'm using for this this live stream was on their recommendation. So, yeah.
Cool.
That's fair, yeah.
They are my guru.
Yes. And it was fantastic to see the two of you on that when you had your day meeting up. It was...
Yes. Yeah,
because obviously we all know each other through like Billie's Discord and Ali's Discord.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was fab.
We were both like,
it's especially great because I think that the time I actually got Twitter and started discovering that there was a whole community of people who were as crazy as I was like not all that long before the pandemic happened and nobody could meet anyone in real life, and it's been such a marvelous thing to make so many new friends on the internet who have like many of the same hobbies and interests.
Yeah.
But then not to get to meet any of them in real life is really surreal. So Ali was like the first, basically. I got to go meet them, and that was fantastic. And I'm just looking forward to many more meetups this year and next.
Definitely. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to see you at Maker Central, maybe.
When is Maker Central? Remind me.
It is
last day of April, first day of May, if I remember correctly.
That sounds very doable. Fantastic. It's going in my diary immediately after this.
It is going to be over in Birmingham, though.
Well, it's got to be somewhere. No, I like Birmingham. So
easy to get to.
Yeah.
And I think Ali has said that they're going.
Yes, I believe they
plans to go.
Fabulous.
Just need to get Billie over, really. That would be
that would be wicked. Yeah.
And of course get Eric over and get Jamie over and get the Discord crew in.
The whole gang together. Yeah.
Yeah, try and outnumber some of the woodworkers. Yeah. Nothing wrong with woodworkers, but I think a lot of people commented after first Maker Central that it was a lot of woodworkers, a lot of turners.
Yeah.
But I think the second one was much more balanced, and I think the next one will hopefully be much more balanced again.
So you're saying Robot Wars is going to be there at the next one, so
yeah.
And Podpad Studios and well, they were there the last two anyway, but Podpad Studios, that was a good one. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Right. Yeah. We don't want to make that 3 hours, do we? Let's get into it. So, thank you, Hannah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, next week we have Billie.
Come on, Andy, get it together.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we've got Billie next week, Billie Ruben.
Looking forward to that one.
Very excited about that. Our first Australian guest.
Amazing.
Obviously, sometimes referred to as the Queen of 3D printing. So very, very excited.
Well deserved, Monica. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Week after that, we've got Shawn from Kit Invent Stuff. So that's going to be exciting. So we'll have done the entire team of Kit Invent Stuff, including
the guest star.
Yeah.
Although we haven't as yet done Colin Firth's, although arguably,
yeah,
you know, he was just a guest on Kids Invent Stuff. You know,
that's very true.
Yeah, and he's very busy and may not be able to join us because of his busyness. He may have been asked, but yeah, if you change your mind, please, yeah, we will think about having you on.
And to be fair, if Colin's got nearly 3 hours into listening to one of our podcasts, he should have accepted by now anyway.
Yes, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
He's just nervous.
I think so.
Yeah, well, yeah,
but it's all right because we can put him at ease. Like,
yeah, I mean, he's not used to the big time. Yeah, I mean, he's only got what, 10 or 11.
I mean, this live stuff and things.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
He is. Having met him, I mean, I've met him briefly, and he is a nice chap actually. So yeah, it'd be nice to chat, and I think he would be a good guest to chat to. So
I bet
that would be nice.
But
and then
it has
3
been
weeks'
an
time,
absolute pleasure tonight.
Oh, the pleasure's
Thank
been
you
all
very
mine. It's been great.
And we have officially now gone over the 3 hours. So yeah, I think it's also bye-bye now, shall we? And then we can.
And then post-show Maplin's rant. I haven't forgotten. I'm looking forward to that.
Good.
Yes. So yeah, it's goodbye from me.
And from me. And
and
thank you
from
again
me.
to Hannah.
Yay.